Chapter 4681. Looking at Princess Zixa's laughter, Xiaohua's heavy heart relaxed for no reason. He smiled and slowly walked behind Princess Zixia. On the beach, among Princess Zixa's messy footprints, there were 2 lines of firm footprints that accompanied her all the way to the front of the bouquet. Princess Zixia listened and looked at the huge bouquet. She smiled and said, "Xiaohua, do you know? When I was young, I often played beside the heavenly river. Occasionally, I would use star sand to build a small house. I even begged Mother to build a palace with sand for me to live in. I remember very clearly that Imperial Mother had promised. However, before Mother could use her divine ability to build it, I had already started the most basic cultivation. After that, I never went to the heavenly river to play again. That little house made of sand was also left in my dreams. Today, after seeing this moon-embracing palace, I finally know that I was not the only one who had such a beautiful dream when I was young. Fairy Xingyu and even more female cultivators also had such a beautiful dream." "Ah yes." Xiaohua smiled and said, "I also didn't expect the moon-embracing palace to be like this. Xinxin, if you like it, I'll give you this moon-embracing palace. Since you control Star-Picking Tower, I'll give you this moon-embracing palace." "No, I don't want this." Princess Zixia smiled and shook her head. "Although I had the same dream as Fairy Xingyu, this is her dream, not mine. The palace I want. You should be the one to build it for me, right? Moreover, this moon-embracing palace contains Fairy Xingyu's thoughts. It can be considered her secret. Unlike Star-Picking Tower, other than Fairy Xingyu, no one is qualified to own this moon-embracing palace. You can't and I can't. Presumably, this is also the reason why Fairy Xingyu gave you the secret of the moon-embracing palace in the end. Therefore, I think that after we find something useful in the moon-embracing palace, we should leave this place and seal it off. Don't let anyone come in again." Xiaohua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Xinxin, you're right. This is Fairy Xingyu's palace. After she left, she didn't plan to let anyone else in. It's good that you and I can come here. After we leave, we'll seal it off and don't let anyone disturb the peace here. If you like it, I'll build a sand palace for you in the Kunlun Wonderland." "Great, great." Princess Zixia clapped with a smile. She took Xiaohua's hand and flew into the moon-embracing palace. Similar to what Xiaohua thought, the first palace they entered was empty. The moon palace was empty. Fairy Xingyu believed in Su Ji's divination skills very much. She had the idea of never returning after entering the moon palace. Therefore, when she left, she made sufficient preparations and took away everything that could be used. She did not leave anything special behind. Fairy Xingyu didn't say anything about the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua didn't know whether it was the Jade Eyes or something else. Therefore, although he saw that the palace was empty, he didn't dare to neglect it. Every time he passed by a palace, he used his naked eyes, divine thoughts and Dharma eyes to check it out. Princess Zixia also activated her golden eyes to help Xiaohua. After looking at more than a dozen palaces in a row, they didn't find anything. Princess Zixia couldn't help but frown and say, "Xiaohua, it seems that Fairy Xingyu took everything she could. Where are the clues she left behind?" Xiaohua was also a little anxious. After all, what he was looking for was the secret of the immortal realm. Even Fairy Xingyu didn't dare to say it out loud. Who knew where she would leave the clues? During this time, Xiaohua was also guessing in his heart. Since it was so secretive, why would Fairy Xingyu leave clues in the moon-embracing palace? He thought of a lot of possibilities. At first, he thought that Fairy Xingyu might have left the clues for him. However, at that time, Fairy Xingyu didn't know that he came from the Dawn Rain continent and didn't know him. It was impossible for her to leave such a clue for him in advance. Later, Xiaohua felt that Fairy Xingyu was deliberately showing off and wanted to leave some secrets in the moon-embracing palace. However, he laughed at himself first. Fairy Xingyu was not an ordinary female immortal, nor was she a young girl who was ignorant of the world. How could she show off? How could she leave something that could be used against Fairy Xingyu in the 3 continents? Xiaohua couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it, which made Xiaohua have no idea where the clues were. He could only search inch by inch. Since the moon-embracing palace was the work of an immortal, there were many strange restrictions in many places. Xiaohua's divine thoughts couldn't reach far, and his delusion breaker Dharma eyes could only see a space of about 100 feet. This slowed down Xiaohua's search speed. Hearing Princess Zixia's question, Xiaohua closed his delusion breaker Dharma eyes and rested for a moment. He answered, "Yes, when Fairy Xingyu left that day, she didn't think of coming back. Of course, she took as much as she could." "What's this?" As the 2 of them talked, they came to another hall. Xiaohua's gaze swept around and immediately fell on a table. There was a green jade paperweight that was more than an inch long on the table. Xiaohua asked in surprise. He raised his hand and took the paperweight in his hand. The paperweight was very heavy in his hand. Obviously it was not an ordinary item. Xiaohua hurriedly used his divine thoughts and dharma eyes to examine it. Unfortunately, a moment later he was disappointed again. He handed the paperweight to Princess Zixia and whispered, "Zixia, help me take a look." Princess Zixia took it and looked at it for a moment. She smiled bitterly and said, "I can't see anything. It seems to be a paperweight." "Fine." Xiaohua said helplessly and looked away. At this time there were more things left in this hall. In addition to the paperweight, there were also jade cups, jade plates, and other things that after looking through all the things here, Xiaohua entered another hall with disappointment. As they went deeper, more things were left behind in the hall. The two of them slowed down again. After a few days, Xiaohua and Princess Zixia finally arrived in front of a sealed hall. Looking at the thick fog in front of the hall door, Xiaohua's heart thumped wildly. Xiaohua and Princess Zixia looked at each other. Xiaohua took out the token again. This time, Fairy Xingyu's token did not produce any special changes. It was only a fist-sized star that rushed into the fog, and the hall door slowly opened. This. Xiaohua's divine thoughts swept over and he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said in surprise, "This is Xingyu's Hall of Heroes." "Ah, Fairy Xingyu put all the heroes of Zhai Xinglu here." Princess Zixia looked around and saw that under the starry sky, every sculpture was emitting a valiant aura, just like their exciting lives. She couldn't help but smile and say, "If Xiaohua wants to find any clues, I'm afraid it can only be found here." Xiaohua nodded. "Yes, it should be so. This Hall of Heroes contains everything about the 3 continents that Fairy Xingyu searched for. What she wants to tell me must be hidden behind these sculptures." Princess Zixia wanted to explore separately with Xiaohua to improve the efficiency of the search, but she knew that even after she searched, if Xiaohua couldn't find it, he would definitely search again. She didn't discuss any strategy with Xiaohua. Her figure flashed, and she rushed into the Hall of Heroes with Xiaohua. They landed in a paradise, and she casually summoned a hero's book and slowly looked through it. Seeing that Princess Zixia was so considerate, Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He thought to himself, compared to flowers, compared to jade, this Xiaohua is lucky to have such a woman by my side. Xiaohua looked through the hero's book in a different way from Princess Zixia. He wasn't in a hurry to pick up the jade eyes. Instead, he released his divine thoughts and roughly looked through the entire Hall of Heroes. The Hall of Heroes here was more than 100 times larger than the Hall of Heroes in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realms Star-Picking Tower. The number of sculptures and jade eyes inside was more than 100 times more. Moreover, there were many strange sculptures and jade eyes outside the borders of the 3 continents and 4 seas. Xiaohua restrained his impulse to directly pick up those jade eyes. He sat down cross-legged and with his palms facing the sky, he formed a karma seal with his hands. Obscure, profound, and strange karma hand phantoms rushed out of his body and landed in various parts of the Hall of Heroes like the thousand-hand guanyin. As the karma hand covered the area, countless streams of light appeared in the countless jade eyes. These streams of light flew into the air and formed a faintly discernible river of karma. As the river flowed, Princess Zixia's inspection of the jade eyes gradually slowed down until it finally stopped. The river of karma didn't have a source, and there was no end to where the river of karma went. However, as the river of karma flowed through the space where Xiaohua was, everything in it was clear and orderly. After an unknown period of time, the river of karma suddenly trembled and collapsed into fragments that fell into different jade eyes. At the same time, Princess Zixia's still figure moved slightly, and everything returned to normal. She continued to inspect as if nothing had happened. When she looked at Xiaohua again, his eyelashes fluttered above his tightly shut eyes. His eyes slowly opened, and they were filled with disappointment and confusion. That's strange. Xiaohua looked at the sculpture to his left, inwardly puzzled. This Xiao used the hand of karma, bringing all of the Heroes' Pavilion's Book of Heroes into the river of karma. Although it can't be said that everything is covered, the karma within is clear. But in this karma, why don't I see the information about the realm that Fairy Xingyu mentioned? Could it be that the information about the Dawn Rain continent isn't in the Hall of Heroes? Xiaohua muttered in his heart. His figure moved again. He raised his hand and a dozen jade eyes on his left fell into his hand. Then he placed them on his forehead one by one to inspect them. Of course, Xiaohua's inspection this time was much more detailed. There were many details in the jade eyes and he didn't miss a single word. However, he still didn't find anything. Chapter 4682. However, several months later, when Xiaohua put down the last jade eye, he looked at Princess Xixia, whose eyes were still flashing with a faint golden light. Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "Xixia." "Oh, Xiaohua? What did you find?" Princess Xixia asked hurriedly. Xiaohua didn't answer but asked, "How many times have you done it?" This Princess Xixia was slightly stunned and then said, "The third time." "Did you find anything?" "Not yet." Princess Xixia forced a smile and said, "But it doesn't matter, I'll look again. Maybe I didn't look carefully the first 2 times and missed some places." "Put it down first." Xiaohua sighed and said, "I think the information that Fairy Xingyu wants to say might not be in this Hall of Heroes." "What?" Princess Xixia didn't put down the jade eye, she just closed her golden eye and rested for a while. She asked curiously. "The Hall of Heroes is where all the information about the 3 continents is recorded. According to common sense, the information about the 3 continents must be here. But the problem is that this information is very secretive and important. Even someone as strong as Fairy Xingyu doesn't dare to say it to me face to face. In that case, she can't brazenly put it in the Hall of Heroes." "Not necessarily. What is true is false and what is false is true. Maybe there is some information hidden in a word or sentence." Princess Xixia objected. "At first I thought so too, so I didn't dare to use any divine ability. I only used the clear eyes technique and divine thought to look at the jade eye in the Hall of Heroes twice. I am sure that I didn't miss a single word. But I didn't find anything at all." Princess Xixia nodded and said, "Then what do you mean? Put down the Book of Heroes in the Hall of Heroes first." Xiaohua bit his lips and said, "Let's go look at the other places in the moon-embracing palace." "Okay." Princess Xixia put the jade eye in her hand back and flew out of the Hall of Heroes with Xiaohua. Outside the Hall of Heroes, there was a rather large hall with some bookshelves and some chairs. The bookshelves were also empty without any jade eye. Xiaohua habitually released his divine thought to look at the bookshelves first, and Princess Xixia also flew towards the chairs in the distance. After the Hall of Heroes, Xiaohua and Princess Xixia's search speed increased once again. They passed through one palace hall after another and gradually approached the center of the moon-embracing palace. On this day, as they walked out of the palace, they were greeted by an extremely large garden. The garden was filled with a strange fragrance, and there were many strange flowers and plants growing all over the garden. In the middle of all these flowers, there was a strange pavilion that entered Xiaohua and Princess Xixia's eyes. This pavilion was like a hammer but also like a flower. When Xiaohua looked at it carefully, it looked like a jade cup. The full moon that was previously hanging on the beach was now visible, as if it was above the pavilion. When Xiaohuafei got closer, the pavilion actually looked like a large hand plucking the full moon from the sky. Moon-embracing palace. Xiaohua cried out involuntarily. "Xixia, this is the true moon-embracing palace." "Not bad." Princess Xixia nodded and agreed. "I've already roughly looked through all the flowers in the garden. There's nothing special about them. Most of these flowers were from the 3 continents, but a small portion of them were from the outer realm. Furthermore, these flowers are pure flowers, not some rare spiritual flowers." "Good. Thank you for your hard work." Xiaohua smiled and nodded. When he saw the moon-embracing palace, he already had a feeling that the secret he was looking for should be inside. Then Xiaohua urged his figure and flew towards the pavilion. Unfortunately, after flying for half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua passed by layers of flowers, but the pavilion in front of him was still just a pavilion. He couldn't get close at all. Although Xiaohua's divine sense didn't detect any abnormalities, how could he not understand that this must be Fairy Xingyu's method? Xiaohua stopped and took out Goddess Xingyu's token. Under the activation of the Fury of Thunder, another star flew out. However, to Xiaohua's surprise, the star fell into the void. Waves of ripples appeared out of thin air, washing the space where the pavilion was. Xiaohua tried a few more times but he still couldn't get close to it. "Damn it." Xiaohua's eyes turned rapidly and he turned to Princess Xixia and said, "Wait here for a moment, watch my method." "Okay." Princess Xixia nodded and stopped. Rumble. Xiaohua urged the thunder escape and lightning flashed around his body. His figure rushed into the void like lightning. When the thunder escape reached its limit, the pavilion in the distance began to shake. Layers of phantoms were born under the moonlight, and they crashed into Xiaohua's phantoms like water. Moreover, every time there was a collision, a strange ripple would be set off in the space. Open. When Xiaohua felt that the space was as hard as a cliff, He roared again and urged the thunder technique again. An abnormally twisted big hand crazily grabbed at the ripples and the moonlight phantoms in front of him. Where the big hand of thunder landed, a deafening sound was heard. Boom! It was as if the Milky Way had suddenly burst, and the ripples were shattered. Countless beams of light from the stars and the moon turned into waves and fell out of the sky, rushing to the top of Xiaohua's head and turning into a fist-sized lock. The lock rotated rapidly, and a destructive force was born from the lock. Xiaohua had no choice. He only had the token given to him by Fairy Xingyu in his hand, and he didn't even think about it before throwing it into the lock. Gotcha. As the token fell, the lock opened and turned into two colorful phoenixes that flew up. At the same time, the wings of the phoenixes immediately gave off a myriad of multicolored lights. The abnormality caused by Xiaohua's escape was immediately smoothed out, and Xiaohua's figure also stopped. Woo-woo. Wherever the light passed, the entire garden would be swept up by a hurricane. One after another, delicate flowers would be swept up by the hurricane and fall into the wings of the colorful phoenixes. Only after the flowers were destroyed did the colorful phoenixes let out a clear cry and rush back into the pavilions. Clang! With a soft sound, the two small doors of the pavilion opened, and a ray of moonlight came out from the small doors and fell at Xiaohua's feet. Let's go. Xiaohua turned his head and waved at Princess Zixia. Then he urged his figure to fly toward the pavilion. However, he only flew for a moment before he found something strange. He thought that Princess Zixia, who was behind him, didn't follow him at all. Moreover, when Xiaohua took a closer look, he found that Princess Zixia was simply standing there, looking at him with concern. Her eyes didn't even move. Xiaohua pondered for a moment. He knew that this was Fairy Xingyu's confinement. Most likely, only people with the token could enter this pavilion. Therefore, he didn't force his way through the confinement and urged his figure to enter the pavilion. The pavilion wasn't as big as it looked from the outside, and the layout inside was also simple. Other than a jade bed that was dozens of feet in size placed in the center like a bed, there was a jade table, and two jade chairs placed casually beside the jade table. There was nothing else. However, on the other side of the jade bed, there was a door that was the size of a person. The sound of waves came from there. Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. He opened his delusion breaker eye and looked at the jade table and the jade chairs. He even looked at the space below the jade again and again, for fear that he would miss an entrance like the one in the Legacy Realm. After looking around, Xiaohua didn't find anything strange. He looked at the other spaces in the pavilion and finally, his gaze fell on the door. There was a strange restriction on the door. His divine sense couldn't penetrate it, but he could hear the sound of waves. When Xiaohua walked to the door, he looked up and down. When he lifted his foot, to his surprise, his figure easily passed through the door. Outside the door, there seemed to be a space extended out from the pavilion. As soon as Xiaohua came out of the space, he could see fine white sand as well as the boundless sea. However, before Xiaohua could stand still, his body shook violently, and a bone-chilling feeling immediately emerged from the bottom of his heart. Ah! A string of bell-like sounds came from the beach in the distance. Wasn't that Princess Zixia's laughter? Xiaohua stood there in a daze as he stared into the distance. The graceful Princess Zixia was currently pulling her hand out of the other Xiaohua's hand and happily jumping around on the beach, as if she was a little girl who had broken free from her restraints. The other Xiaohua had a smile on his face as he slowly walked behind Princess Zixia. On the beach, among the messy footprints of Princess Zixia, there were two lines of firm footprints that looked very clear. Heaven of Transformation. Illusion. Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the Illusion Star Moon Palace in the ruins. His slightly frightened eyes suddenly flashed with two strings of scarlet flames. However, just as the scarlet flames flashed in his eyes, the illusion on the beach disappeared again. Another Princess Zixia and another Xiaohua disappeared at the same time. Only 2 rows of messy footprints were left on the beach. 2 pairs of firm footprints were left on the beach. Xiaohua was stunned. He focused his eyes again and released his divine sense. Sure enough, the beach was still the same beach and the sea breeze was still the same sea breeze. There were no more 2 people. Phew. Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief. He lowered his head and looked around. He saw that he was on a platform with a praying mat on it. On one side of the praying mat was a book. This book was different from the books Xiaohua had seen before. It looked extremely old. Xiaohua didn't rashly pick up the praying mat and book. Instead, he opened his delusion breaker eye. However, Xiaohua was disappointed after a short moment. Because the praying mat still had some brilliance like silk, The book simply couldn't be seen with his delusion breaker eye. In other words, this book was an ordinary item. Xiaohua picked up the praying mat and carefully looked at it. Soon after, he raised his hand and was about to pick up the book again. However, at this time there was another ha-ha sound of laughter. Xiaohua raised his head. Sure enough, the illusion from before was born again. Chapter 4683. This time Xiaohua did not deliberately disturb the illusion. Instead, he pinched his chin and looked into the distance, quietly waiting for the illusion to develop. The illusion did not last long. When Xiaohua and Princess Zixia walked to the bouquet, the illusion ended. The entire beach returned to its original calm state. I understand now. Xiaohua looked at all this thoughtfully. Fairy Xing, you must have missed Su Ji, so she set up an illusion here to record the scene of Su Ji coming to the moon-embracing palace. When Fairy Xing you missed him, she would come and take a look. No wonder Fairy Xing you didn't want to give the moon-embracing palace to me. This contains the feelings of a girl. How could she be embarrassed to let others know? These feelings are the proof of time. Fairy Xing you couldn't bear to destroy them, so she left them here. If I hadn't helped Fairy Xing Yu and Su Ji fulfill their long-cherished wish, how could Fairy Xing Yu have let them in? If that's the case, what is recorded in this book? Thinking about this, Xiaohua raised his hand to take the book. When his fingers touched the book, a corner of the book turned into ashes with a whoosh. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. His hand stopped and he cried out in disbelief, This is a book used by the secular world? The moon-embracing palace was built by immortals. Xiaohua would not be surprised to see any strange things in it. However, on this platform where Fairy Xing Yu missed Su Ji, there was a book used by the secular people. Moreover, it was a book from who knew how many years ago. A book that had turned into ashes and would disappear with a touch. How could Xiaohua not be surprised? Suddenly Xiaohua quivered. His tenacious Tao heart could not help but tremble. He finally understood what Fairy Xing Yu meant. If there was no accident, the secret of the 3 continents was in this book that had turned into ashes. The secret that even Fairy Xing Yu did not dare to reveal must have been recorded in the scroll for some reason that Xiaohua did not know. Since the scroll had already turned into ashes, Fairy Xing Yu did not destroy it. Of course, there were other things recorded in the scroll that Fairy Xing Yu could not bear to destroy with her own hands. Instead, she made use of the power of time to make everything disappear. In particular, Fairy Xing Yue had said clearly that it would depend on Xiaohua's luck and magical power. If Xiaohua had used his Dharma power to pick up the scroll like he had picked up the futon, then the scroll would have been completely turned into ashes. Xiaohua would not have been able to explore the secrets inside. But even so, the entire scroll had already turned into ashes. How could Xiaohua see what was inside? Xiaohua held his breath and slowly retreated. Once he was some distance away from the scroll, his mind raced as he searched for a spell that he could use. However, after the time it took to drink a cup of tea had passed, Xiaohua's forehead began to sweat. It seemed to be a simple matter, but he didn't have the slightest clue. Moreover, he knew that since Fairy Xing Yu had dared to leave the scroll here, she must have understood that if she was not proficient in the law of time and could reverse the flow of time on the scroll, who could restore a scroll from tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years ago to its original state. What should I do? What should I do? Xiaohua was burning with anxiety, his eyes fixed on the decayed scroll. Pah! Suddenly Xiaohua raised his hand and hit his forehead. He cried out inwardly, Damn it, why am I so stupid? I can't do anything to this scroll if I leave it here. If I get it to Xinhua continent, I'll do whatever I want. Whoosh! Just as Xiaohua was getting excited, his action brought about a gust of wind. Some debris fell from the scroll again. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed and hurriedly released his mind. He carefully rolled up the pile of decayed fragments and sent them into the space. Then Xiaohua's mind also entered the space. Xiaohua turned into Jade Archive Xiaohua and sat cross-legged in the space. At this time, the scroll was not in Xinhua continent, nor was it in the spiritual realm. It was not in any of the other spaces that had yet to take shape. Jade Archive Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed. His index finger was about to produce a dazzling light, but he stopped in an instant. He pinched his chin and whispered, In this space I'm close to a god, but it's still impossible for me to reverse the flow of time. Moreover, what Xiaohua wanted to know was what was recorded in the scroll. He did not necessarily have to restore it. In the space, this scroll has already decayed. Any magic spell or even a wisp of wind can destroy it. But in the space I can make it as hard as iron. Even a magic spell won't damage it, so why would I need to make such a big fuss? Thinking about this, Jade Archive Xiaohua gently raised his hands and placed them on the decayed scroll. As his palms closed, a purple mist appeared in his eyes. Ancient characters were reflected in his eyes. Yan Province's strange spirits. Jade Archive Xiaohua was slightly stunned. With a thought, another book appeared out of thin air. Wasn't it the other Gan Province's strange spirits? Immediately, Jade Archive Xiaohua looked at the decayed Gan Province's strange spirits, while slowly opening the other book to compare. The so-called Records of the Ghosts and Monsters of Gun Province was nothing more than a collection of stories about ghosts and monsters passed down by word of mouth in Gun Province. They might have something to do with Taoism, Confucianism, or some ghosts and monsters. It was impossible to verify whether they were true or false. Moreover, this book was for people to use in their leisure time. It had no value at all. Xiaohua read more than half of it. Although the things inside were somewhat different from the ones in his hands, most of them were similar. The reason for the changes could only be because of the passage of time and the changes in the records. Seeing that he had reached the last page of Gan Province's Strange Spirits, Jade Archive Xiaohua suddenly stopped. This was because at the end of the decayed book, there were some small words written with an ink brush. Wasn't it left behind by Fairy Xingyu? Jade Archive Xiaohua took a deep breath, and his eyes flickered with extraordinary splendor. He read word by word, Moon-embracing palace has already begun to take shape, and Su Ji has placed his mind on finding clues to return. He would go out from time to time, and I would use my divine arts to investigate when I was bored to death. However, I still underestimated the power of that book Immortal. This divine ability actually backfired, causing me to instantly go berserk when I obtained a great secret. My body couldn't move. Su Ji returned and helped me heal. He also took out this Gan Province's Strange Spirits, saying that he was afraid that I would be lonely, and then bought it with 4 copper coins. I felt sweet in my heart and asked him to read it for me. This was originally an unreasonable request, but he really agreed. There were 47 stories in the book and he read one story every day for 47 days. After 47 days, my injuries were much better and I could move again. Only then did he feel relieved and leave. I flipped through the book and sighed. If he didn't have me in his heart, how could he be so patient to accompany me? But if he had me in his heart, why couldn't he? Say it? He read 47 stories for me. Today I will also write a story for him, a story that he has never heard before. A long time ago, there was a big mountain in the east of Gan Province. A group of people lived on the mountain. These people practiced magic and were very powerful. They had the ability to move mountains and fill seas. At the foot of the mountain there were 6 tribes. The people of these 6 tribes were very ignorant. Not only did they not know how to cultivate, but even their lives were very difficult. Often they did not have enough clothes to cover their bodies and food to fill their stomachs. Later, the people on the mountain occasionally saw the difficulties of these tribes and casually taught them some life skills, such as farming, fishing, hunting, etc., so that they could have the ability to survive. After a long time, some people in these tribes became ambitious and began to enslave others in order to obtain more food. However, after they controlled the entire tribe, they discovered other tribes. Thus the tribes began to kill each other. The originally peaceful lives were disrupted. Every day they could hear wails and cries of pain. The killing became more and more widespread. In the end, all 6 tribes at the foot of the mountain participated. Some people began to have ulterior motives, and some tribes formed an alliance to fight against other powerful tribes. The sound of killing and the smell of blood spread to the top of the mountain and affected the people's cultivation. They were very curious as to what had happened. However, when they found the reason, they were helpless. They did not know why a good thing had turned into a bad thing. Although they were very powerful, they could not change the greed of these tribes. Moreover, they also knew that if there was no good solution, these tribes would be destroyed in the end. In the end, someone came up with a solution that was not really a solution, which was to dig 5 extremely deep abysses between the 6 tribes so that the 6 tribes could not kill each other. After the abysses were dug, the 6 tribes could no longer kill each other. Moreover, as time passed, the 6 tribes had forgotten the past and thought that they were the only tribes at the foot of the mountain, and that there were only as many tribes at the foot of the mountain. I don't know if Su Ji will like this story. However, he is so dull that he will definitely just nod. Alas, it's really boring. Xiaohua read the Jade Archive very puzzledly. To be honest, this story had neither literary talent nor suspense. Although it was written by a female immortal who was as beautiful as a flower, other than the graceful handwriting, it could not be compared to the previous 47 stories. Jade Archive Xiaohua did not know if Suji had nodded and praised it back then. In any case, he had directly given Fairy Xingyue a thumbs up. However, after giving her a thumbs up, Jade Archive Xiaohua thought about how a female immortal had actually tried her best to make up a story in order to please others. Based on this friendship alone, Jade Archive Xiaohua was too embarrassed to give her a thumbs up. Therefore, Jade Archive Xiaohua crossed his ring finger and gave Fairy Xingyue a middle finger. Chapter 4684. After expressing his respect for Fairy Xingyue, Xiaohua had no choice but to read the Jade Archive again from beginning to end. This was because he really could not find any clues from the story. But when he saw the part about causing me to go crazy in an instant after obtaining a great secret, his heart skipped a beat. What kind of magic is this? How could it cause a fairy to go crazy in an instant? What great secret did you find out that made Fairy Xingyue so surprised? Xiaohua thought to himself. There are many ways to explore secrets such as my karma hand, Suji's divination skills, and even the secret skills of Qingqiu Mountain. Suji only mentioned his divination skills, but he did not mention that Fairy Xingyu knew divination skills. However, Fairy Xingyu also said that she also knew many secret skills of the immortal world, such as the Delusion Breaker Magic Eye. Both the Punishment Palace and the Palace of Justice are famous institutions in the immortal world. In that case, Fairy Xingyu should also know the secret skills that Suji knew. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that Suji's divination skills came from Qingqiu Mountain and Fairy Xingyu did not know them. But this is unlikely. As for a secret technique that could cause a fairy to suffer cultivation deviation, it must be a secret technique that has extremely high requirements on the mortal body. My guess is that it should be an immortal technique similar to divination. Only such a celestial skill can let Fairy Xingyu know a great secret. As for what secret it is it related to the 3 continents? Xiaohua held back his doubts and continued reading. When he saw the word 6 tribes, Xiaohua's heart stirred as he instantly understood something. Tao sect, Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, Fey race, Dragon race. I understand now. Fairy Xingyue is using the 6 tribes to refer to the various cultivation sects of the 3 continents. In other words, Fairy Xingyu must have known what realm the 3 continents were and thought of the unspeakable secret that even Suji did not know. However, Fairy Xingyu was a female cultivator. There were no secrets from a female cultivator. She really wanted to tell Suji this secret, but she knew the serious consequences of revealing it. Therefore, she couldn't help but write this story at the end of the scroll, which had been altered beyond recognition by her. Firstly, she had told the story to Suji. Secondly, she had revealed this secret to Suji in a different way. From the bottom of her heart, she felt much more at ease. Maybe Fairy Xingyue also felt that she couldn't live and used this method to tell Suji about her situation. Also at that time, Fairy Xingyu must have been seriously injured and lost her mind. That was why she wrote the story. Later, after she recovered, she regretted it. That was why she did not use her magical power to preserve the scroll. She allowed the scroll to decay with the passage of time, concealing this secret in time. Presumably, even if she told me that this secret was in the moon-embracing palace, she would not believe that I would be so lucky to find this scroll and read this story from it, right? If so, a mountain, a group of people with magical powers, 6 tribes and 5 abysses all have other meanings. No, how can it be 5 abysses? It should be 6 abysses. Only the 6 paths of abyss can separate the 6 tribes. No matter how the 5 paths of abyss are separated, there must be 2 tribes together. Jade Archive Xiaohua secretly speculated, could it be that this abyss has some other meaning? Let's not talk about the meaning of this abyss first. Let's just think of it as a prison. The 6 tribes are Taoist, Confucian, Buddhist, Demon, Dragon, and what if soul cultivators are included? Wouldn't there be 6 of them? However, if that's the case, Fairy Xingyu's writing is too obvious, isn't it? Well, these 6 tribes may not specifically refer to soul cultivators. Fairy Xingyu may not know that there are soul cultivators in the 3 continents. What about a group of people with magical powers? If we compare them to the 3 continents, this group of people can only be mortals. What about the mountain? We can only think of it as the immortal world. A tribe corresponds to one side of the mountain, which is to say, a sect corresponds to one's own immortal world. If we use these metaphors to replace the things in the story, erase the things that Fairy Xingyu hates and think deeper, then this should be the real thing. Jade Archive Xiaohua thought about his own experience and the metaphors in the story. He had almost seen through the great secret that Fairy Xingyu had hidden in her heart. He thought to himself, in ancient times Taoist, Confucian, Buddhist and demon must have been together. The Dawn Rain continent and the three continents were also connected. They should be called the four continents. No, they shouldn't be called the four continents. The ancient records of Buddhist clearly state that there are four continents in the world. These four continents should be the four continents. However, Taoists developed too quickly and our strength surpassed the other three sections. We fought with each other for some benefits. The impact of this battle must have been too bad and attracted the attention of the immortal world. Therefore, immortals from the immortal world, the heavenly court, the Buddhist kingdom, and the demon realm came to the four continents and set up three innate divine restrictions in the West Ocean, separating the Dawn Rain continent from the three continents. Well, this immortal must not be an ordinary immortal. Otherwise, with Fairy Xingyu's ability, why would she not dare to say it? This immortal might be a celestial supremacy. Only a celestial supremacy could set up such a terrifying immortal formation. Thinking that the Great Meru Buddhist formation, the Five Elements Destruction formation, and the Clear Song of Time Demon formation might have been set up by a celestial supremacy, Jade Archive could not help but feel bitter. No wonder Fairy Xingyu had said clearly that Xiaohua could not return to the Dawn Rain continent. It was because the three continents and the Dawn Rain continent were not two different worlds. Instead, there were three artificial immortal formations. Since it was man-made, it was not natural. It was rare to miss something, so Fairy Xingyu concluded that Xiaohua could not return to the Dawn Rain continent through these three immortal formations. Now that he knew the secret of the four continents, Jade Archive Xiaohua naturally thought of a way to break this immortal formation. Unfortunately, no matter how many times he read Fairy Xingyu's story, he could not find any clues from it. Not to mention whether Fairy Xingyu knew how to break the immortal formation. Even if she knew, she would never reveal the method in this story. However, Jade Archive Xiaohua still did not give up. He read the scroll again from beginning to end, more than a dozen times. Then he raised his hand and let go of the decaying scroll. After thinking for a while, he made a decision. After taking the scroll out of the space, he shook it slightly. Whoosh! The entire scroll turned into flying ash and scattered around the futon. Since Xiaohua had obtained the secret that Fairy Xingyu wanted to tell him, this scroll had no value in existing. Instead of leaving it here and letting it be used against Fairy Xingyu, it would be better to make it disappear so that Fairy Xingyu could rest assured. Then Xiaohua looked around, clapped his hands and said in a low voice, "Senior Xingyu, this can be considered as destroying the evidence. I have not let you down. Unfortunately, you said too little. If you could tell me how to break the immortal formation, it would be perfect." After saying that, Xiaohua did not stay any longer. He turned around and returned to the pavilion. When he walked out of the pavilion, he was surprised to find himself on the other side of the garden. Princess Zixia did not follow him. There were many palaces on the other side of the garden. Xiaohua did not dare to miss them. He continued to search through them one by one. These palaces were somewhat different from the previous ones. There were many things left behind. Xiaohua roughly looked at them and kept them in the space. However, when Xiaohua walked out of a palace door, he was once again faced with the beach. Xiaohua didn't find anything of value. "Xiaohua." Princess Zixia's voice came from not far away. Xiaohua did not dare to answer. When Princess Zixia came closer, he asked tentatively, "Zixia, why are you on the beach? I can't enter that pavilion. You also disappeared. Naturally, I could only wait in the garden." Princess Zixia replied naturally, "But after waiting for a long time, you did not come out. I did not want to waste time, so I went back to search again." Saying that, she handed over a universe bracelet and said, "This is what I found. See if it is useful." Xiaohua took it and used his divine sense to check it. He smiled and nodded. "Whether it is useful or not, I am relieved that you are the real one." "I am naturally the real one. Could it be that you encountered something in the pavilion?" Princess Zixia was shocked. Nothing. Xiaohua said with a smile, "This is Fairy Xingyu's moon-embracing palace. There should not be any special illusion. I was thinking too much." Seeing that Xiaohua was unwilling to say more, Princess Zixia was not as curious as ordinary female cultivators. She only nodded and said, "It's good that you know. Shall we continue to search? Or leave this place?" "Let's leave," Xiaohua replied. Although Xiaohua did not say much, Princess Zixia had already sensed it. She smiled and said, "Then congratulations, darling Xiao." Alas, it is not good news. Although Princess Zixia did not ask, Xiaohua did not intend to hide it from her. He replied, It can even be considered bad news. It can't be. Princess Zixia was puzzled. We worked so hard to find this place and spent so much effort to investigate. What we found is actually bad news. Yes. Xiaohua looked at Princess Zixia and explained, Zixia, this news is of no help to us in dealing with the world-destroying strange insect. However, you must remember that you cannot reveal a single word of what has happened here. Don't worry about this. Princess Zixia smiled and said, this concubine still has this bit of awareness. That's good. Xiaohua pulled Princess Zixia's hand and flew her towards the pentagonal outline in the distance. He said, let's talk as we walk. Chapter 4685. Xiaohua and Princess Zixia's figures fell into the outline of a pentagon. Seeing the light overflowing from the left and a heavy pressure falling down, Xiaohua understood that he and Princess Zixia had been teleported out. Sure enough, after a short moment, a five-colored brilliance appeared in front of Xiaohua. When Xiaohua rushed into the brilliance, the heavy pressure around him lightened and he saw a blue sky in front of him. Hua hua. The sound of waves came from Xiaohua and Princess Zixia. Princess Zixia lowered her head to look, then a golden color appeared in her eyes. She looked into the distance for a moment and said with certainty, this is still the West Ocean, but it's a lot farther from where we were before. It might be 200,000 miles away. Xiaohua nodded and ordered, take me to the West Ocean Dragon Palace. However, without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, the sound of wind whistling suddenly rose high up in the sky. A valiant origin sense rose up from the sea surface in the distance and swept towards Xiaohua's location. It seemed as if a powerful sea race had discovered Xiaohua's appearance. Humph. Xiaohua coldly snorted as he released his divine sense to meet the attack head-on. However, wherever his divine sense passed, crackling sounds could be heard as countless tiny spatial ripples appeared. Moreover, when these ripples collided with each other, spatial bubbles that were barely visible to the naked eye could be seen rising. Although these bubbles were small, they contained an extremely powerful might. Boom. When the divine sense collided with the origin sense, the bubbles frantically exploded. Not only did the West Ocean surface set off waves that soared to the sky, even a powerful hurricane appeared high up in the sky, tearing apart the few clouds. Xiaohua Daoist Xiao? A voice that Xiaohua was extremely familiar with suddenly sounded. How could you be here? How did you come here? How come I didn't find any trace of you? If it was someone else who said this, Xiaohua would definitely snort disdainfully. Did he need to tell others where he was going? If he came here, would others definitely be able to find him? However, when this voice sounded, Xiaohua didn't seem to feel that the other party was asking too much. Instead, he smiled and said, this Xiao came from a secret place. That place is rather special. Perhaps fellow Taoist can't sense this Xiao's traces. If there's a place in the West Sea that I don't know about, it's probably where that person is. The owner of the voice had yet to appear, but the voice sounded as if it was right next to Xiaohua's ear. That person has been using every possible means to search for the Star Moon Palace. He must be thinking of returning there. Now that you've come out, that person hasn't. Could it be that they've already gotten what they wanted? At this moment, the seawater below Xiaohua suddenly rippled. The ripples formed weird grains which seemed to be in the seawater or the void where the seawater was. When the grains slightly twisted, a huge colorless shell appeared from the grains. Wasn't that colorful sea god shell? Ever since Xiaohua fought the rainbow sea god seashell in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, he hadn't heard any news of her. Later on, when Xiaohua learned that the West Sea Dragon King had gone missing, he naturally thought of Xiao Bai and the rainbow sea god seashell. However, Xiao Bai's strength was still shallow. It was indeed beyond his ability to become the Dragon King of the West Sea. Therefore, Xiaohua was only creating momentum for Xiao Bai and creating all the opportunities for him. He was waiting for the day when Xiao Bai would appear. At the same time, Xiaohua was also full of confidence in the rainbow sea god seashell. No one in the three continents understood the terror of the rainbow sea god seashell better than him. Since the rainbow sea god seashell could create a demon race great sage, creating a West Sea Dragon King shouldn't be too difficult. Xiaohua wasn't surprised by the rainbow sea god seashell's question. Since the Gochin Immortal Emperor and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha knew about Fairy Xingyu and Suji, how could the rainbow sea god seashell, as the ancestor of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, not know about them? It was just that these people were trying their best to protect their secrets. If there wasn't any fundamental conflict of interest, they wouldn't touch the bottom line of others. Therefore, Xiaohua bowed and greeted, Greetings, Senior. To be honest, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell's mood was quite complicated. It was impossible for her to not resent Xiaohua. However, her strength was so great that Xiaohua couldn't do anything to her. Especially that day, she had seen a lot of things from the divine punishment, which were unknown to the Gochin Immortal Emperor and the Mahavairakana Archaic Buddha. Therefore, when she suddenly saw Xiaohua in the West Sea, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell greeted him with a hint of respect and reverence. Seeing Xiaohua bowing and greeting him as a junior, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell didn't dare to neglect him. She hurriedly transformed into her human form, raised her grayish-white arm and said, "Taoist Xiao, you don't have to be so polite. You're already a supreme cultivator of the 3 continents. If we meet as a junior, Xiaobai is my brother, and Senior is the ancestor of the Jade Wave tribe. Plus, Senior Bei Ming is the founding ancestor of my Shanghua Ming. No matter from which perspective, I have to call you Senior." Without waiting for the Rainbow Sea God Seashell to finish, Xiaohua interrupted her with a smile and answered in a low voice. "Okay." The Rainbow Sea God Seashell nodded helplessly and said, "You humans are the most particular. I can't argue with you, so I'll do as you say." Junior Zixia greets Senior. After Xiaohua finished talking with the Rainbow Sea God Seashell, Princess Zixia also quickly came over to greet him. "Zixia?" The Rainbow Sea God Seashell had been paying attention to the princess for a long time. At first, it was surprised to see Zixia coming over to greet him, but then it thought of something and smiled. "Taoist Xiao, Immortal Emperor Gochin sacrificed a lot for the Tao Gate. He sent this beautiful 9th princess to your side?" Xiaohua smiled. He knew that the Rainbow Sea God Seashell came from the royal family, so she was very proficient in all kinds of schemes. Moreover, the love between him and Princess Zixia was very normal. In her eyes, she would definitely see some other colors and meanings. However, he didn't explain and only replied, "Senior, I met Zixia first. At that time, we didn't know each other's identities." The Rainbow Sea God Seashell laughed and said, "How can there be an unclear fate in this world? However, since the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace is greeting me as a junior, how can I come empty-handed?" Saying this, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell waved its hand and took out a small seashell. It handed it to Princess Zixia and said, "Xiao Zhenren and I didn't know each other until we fought. Moreover, I'm actually his senior in the sect. You'll know the reason later. This is my gift to you. I hope that you'll have a prosperous and beautiful family in the future." Junior thanked Senior for the gift. Princess Zixia was very obedient. She carefully received the seashell and glanced at it with her clear eyes. Zixia, who was the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace, was also slightly surprised. The Rainbow Sea God Seashell was very satisfied with Princess Zixia's surprise and said, "There are several things in the seashell that are useful for female cultivators. You should take them now. It's good for your appearance and lifespan." Yes, Junior thanks Senior. Princess Zixia was full of smiles. She turned to look at Xiaohua and winked at him. Xiaohua also responded with a smile. He knew that Princess Zixia had seen through his little scheme. He had met the Rainbow Sea God Seashell as a junior, and as a senior the Rainbow Sea God Seashell had to give Princess Zixia a gift. Moreover, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell couldn't be too stingy in front of the 9th princess of the Immortal Emperor. The things it took out really satisfied Xiaohua. Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror and put Princess Zixia away in front of the Rainbow Sea God Seashell. Then he asked the Rainbow Sea God Seashell, "Senior, you also know Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji? Does Fairy Xingyu know me?" The Rainbow Sea God Seashell asked. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Senior Xingyu naturally knows you. Senior Su even came to the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm to save me." He came. The Rainbow Sea God Seashell frowned and said in a low voice, "His strength is indeed beyond my imagination." That after a moment, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell came back to his senses and asked, "What's the result of this trip to the Star Moon Palace?" Xiaohua didn't answer and said with a smile, "Senior, don't you already know? Why ask again?" Alas. Hearing this, a trace of loneliness appeared on the 7-colored sea god shell's face. He sighed and said, "Fairy Xingyu has worked hard for so many years and finally got what she wanted. All her hard work was not in vain. What about me?" Hearing this, Xiaohua said in a low voice, "Senior, could it be that you want to return to the Red Sea Domain? After leaving the Red Sea Domain for so many years, I naturally want to go back and take a look." In front of Xiaohua, the Rainbow Sea God Seashell was no longer on guard and said with a groan, "Of course, I also understand that the Red Sea Domain now is not the Red Sea Domain of the past. Even if I go back, I might get myself killed. It's better not to go back. Senior, have you found the way back to the Red Sea domain all these years? Xiao Hua asked tentatively. The seven-colored sea god Shell looked at Xiao Hua unhappily and said, "In my early years I fled to the 3 continents and lived in fear every day. I was afraid that the sea race would chase after me. Who would think of finding the way back to the Red Sea domain?" I don't think so. Senior, you've been in the 3 continents for so long and you haven't thought of going home. Xiao Hua continued to ask. It's not that I haven't thought of going back. When I was free, I explored the surroundings of the realms, the rainbow sea god Seashell replied. However, the realms of the 3 continents are very strange. There is no space passage to the outside realms in the nearby space. The turbulence in the realms that I entered has long disappeared, and I can't find any trace of it. Moreover, I'm different from Fairy Xingyu. She knows where she should go, but I don't. So if I want to go back, it's very difficult. Chapter 4686. The 3 continents may not have a way to the Red Ocean domain, but the 10,000 demon realm where Senior Bei Ming is in might have one. Xiao Hua smiled and asked tentatively, Senior, can you think of a way to go to the 10,000 demon realm? The 10,000 demon realm. The rainbow sea god Shell squinted its eyes and smiled. I've heard about this from Little White Dragon and roughly know what happened to Bei Ming in the 10,000 demon realm. However, as of now, I haven't found a space passage to the 10,000 demon realm. If you find it, please tell me. I'll have to pack up and prepare to escape. Yes. Hearing this, Xiao Hua gasped and exclaimed, Senior, could it be? You know those strange insects? The rainbow sea god Shell opened its mouth and hesitated for a moment before speaking. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to tell you. Senior, please tell me. Xiao Hua said with a serious face. Now that things have come to this, no matter how powerful these strange insects are, what can be worse than the end of the world? Moreover, to be honest, I already have some ideas about how to kill these strange insects. Kill the strange insects? The rainbow sea god Shell smiled coldly and looked at Xiao Hua. What's the use of killing 1 or 2 strange insects? Only by killing all the strange insects can the 3 continents truly escape the tragedy of the end of the world. Xiao Hua, you're really arrogant. You don't know what kind of enemy you're facing, and you don't know the origin of these strange insects. Really? The ignorant are fearless. I really don't know the origin of these strange insects. Senior, please teach me. Xiao Hua asked honestly. When I was young, I liked strange things, so I often checked on Beiwen in the Luli Pavilion. That Beiwen recorded some strange things in the Red Ocean domain and even the nearby domains. There seems to be a record of these strange insects. The rainbow sea god Shell explained. If I'm not wrong, these strange insects should be from the upper realm. They're called mayflies. They're the most humble existence in the upper realm. It seems that their biggest role is to devour the dust and waste of the upper realm. In the lower realm, this thing became an extremely strange insect. There was once a realm near the Red Sea domain called the River Domain. This Red Sea domain was plagued by this Red Sea mayfly and almost destroyed the world. What happened in the end? Why didn't they destroy the world? What method did you use to kill Fuyu? Xiao Hua couldn't help but ask. I don't know. The rainbow sea god Shell shook its head and said, according to the records, the Jiang region has already reached the end of the world. A few races inside want to escape, but the void is filled with mayflies. They can't escape even if they want to. However, in just one night, the golden light filled the entire river region. When the golden light disappeared, all of the mayflies also disappeared. Later on, according to a secret leaked out by a royal family in the Jiang region, it was possible that some existence in the upper realm noticed the abnormality and took action to bring the mayflies back to the upper realm. Damn it! Xiao Hua suddenly cursed inwardly and thought, I understand now. Could it be that these mayflies were brought here by the Star Moon Palace's discussion? What boat from that river brought it to the 3 continents? However, Xiao Hua immediately shook his head again. That's not right. I saw Fuyu first and Xianhong discussed the law later. How could these strange insects reach the 3 continents before the Star Moon Palace appeared? Of course, with this thought, Xiao Hua felt as if he was struck by lightning again. His body shook violently and he completely understood that these strange insects must be Fuyu. They were also the black dots he saw in the spatial vein because the law of time on the Xianhong River couldn't be measured by common sense. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, the rainbow sea god Shell frowned and asked curiously, Daoist Xiao, what's wrong? Senior. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said very sincerely, Junior feels that no matter where Senior came from, since you're already living in the 3 continents, you should do something for the 3 continents. Do what? The seven-colored sea god seashell sneered and replied, "What can I do? I've even been deprived of the sea god's bloodline. What else can I do?" Hearing this, Xiaohua felt a little embarrassed. However, before he could say anything, the rainbow sea god shell shouted hysterically, "The heavens are really unfair to me. Even if I've done something wrong, I've still been punished. My children have also been affected. But why is it that just when I saw hope, just when I saw the birth of the sea god's bloodline, the three continents have an apocalyptic warning? You don't know what these Fuyu mean, but how can I not know? Wherever the Fuyu you go, everything becomes barren. No resistance can escape from the Fuyu you. Forget it, so be it. In just 100 years, the three continents will become a dead zone. Who cares if it's alive or dead? Even more so, there's no need to care about its bloodline or inheritance." Xiaohua originally wanted to reveal some information to the rainbow sea god shell, but seeing her so pessimistic, like when he entered the moon-embracing palace, he knew now wasn't the time to persuade her. Thus, he looked around and said with a smile, "Senior, why did you come to the West Sea instead of enjoying your life in the Thousand Demons sacred realm?" "I'm from the Shell clan. Of course I should be in the sea. Why would I go to the Thousand Demons sacred realm?" Junior made a mistake," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Junior thought you were the ancestor of those great sages in the Great Sage Hall, so you should be in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. I really neglected the fact that Senior is from the Shell clan. That is, if possible, Senior, can you invite Junior to sit in Senior's palace?" "Of course." The Rainbow Sea god Shell nodded. "However, my palace is in the North Sea, not the West Sea. Moreover, if you want to go to the North Sea with me, you'd better wait until your good brother finishes his training in the West Sea." "Haha, so that's how it is." Xiaohua smiled and bowed. "Junior thanks Senior on behalf of Little White." "Who needs your thanks?" The Rainbow Sea god Shell smiled coldly. "You're just brothers, but we're related by blood now." Although the Rainbow Sea god Shell's tone was cold, her words were obviously warmer. Xiaohua immediately climbed up the pole and cupped his hands. "Ioyo, then I have to congratulate you even more. I wonder where those little shells are. Quick, call them out and let me see." "What's there to see?" "My Shell clan is different from your human race, there's nothing cute about them." The Rainbow Sea god Shell curled its lips. That beautiful face was like an ink painting. Where did it look like an old ancestor? Xiaohua said with a smile, "No matter what, I'm still an elder. How inappropriate would it be if I don't take a look? If Little White finishes his training, it'll be hard for me to say anything when I see him." The Rainbow Sea god Shell responded. "You humans are so troublesome." With that, the seven-colored sea god seashell waved the right shell. Whoosh! The shell split open space like a sharp sword, and then a gray brilliance turned into a large hand that reached into the void. A moment later, a five-colored brilliance flashed, and Jade Wave's figure flew out from the brilliance of the water. Seeing Xiaohua and the Rainbow Sea god Shell, Jade Wave hurriedly transformed into human form and bowed. "Greetings, ancestor." "Greetings," Daoist shouted, seeing that Jade Wave was no different from the one he saw several decades ago, and her abdomen was still bulging. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly helped Jade Wave up and said with a smile, "No need to be so polite." "Who's being polite with you?" The Rainbow Sea god Shell said unhappily from the side. "Didn't you hear that Jade Wave was greeting me?" With that, the Rainbow Sea god Shell lowered its voice again and asked, "Where are the children? Have they been well during this period of time? Have they been frightened in any way?" Jade Wave pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Many thanks for ancestors' concern, the children are fine." With that, without needing Xiaohua to say anything, Jade Wave slightly opened the shell. No less than a dozen small shells and several small loaches flew out from inside. Whether it was the shells or the small loaches, they were all multicolored. Moreover, this multicolored color looked particularly dazzling in the sunlight and the water. After the small shells and the small loaches flew out, the multicolored color was like water ripples, following the movements of the shells and the small loaches, overflowing and supporting the shells and the small loaches. The dozen or so shells seemed to be a little shy. As soon as they flew out, they immediately surrounded the Jade Wave and didn't fly too far away. As for the several little loaches, they were extremely bold. After swimming a few times in the air, they rushed towards the Western Sea. Good. Unfortunately, without waiting for these small loaches to fly down, the Rainbow Sea god Shell's benevolent voice sounded, "The wind and waves in the sea are too strong. It won't be too late to go when you're a little older." While speaking, the Rainbow Sea god Shell stretched out a big hand of light and scooped up the small loaches. The little loach was obviously a little stubborn. It struggled a few times trying to break free. However, when the big hand brought the little loach to the side of the seven-colored sea god seashell, several little loaches sensed the aura of the seven-colored sea god seashell. They scrambled to swim into the halo around the seven-colored sea god seashell. Looking at the small loaches happily swimming in the halo, the rainbow sea god shell's benevolent face appeared again, and its gaze actually followed the small loaches around. Xiaohua glanced at the multicolored shells, then glanced at the multicolored little loaches. He smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, I really can't see anything. These little things don't look like Whitey at all. They're normal." The rainbow sea god shell rolled its eyes and said, "It's just like when I look at you humans. They all look the same, I can't tell anything apart. Those children are the same, they look like they're carved from the same mold." Jade Wave had called Xiaohua Big Brother before, but later she learned of the Fortune Gate's strength and that Xiaohua was a supreme cultivator of the three mainlands. She didn't dare to call him Big Brother when Xiaobai wasn't present. She only said in a low voice, "Tao Master, these dragons are like this when they're young. In another 100 years they'll grow horns and at that time, you'll be able to see Xiaobai's appearance. As for these, from the perspective of the human race, these shells should be women. They'll look similar to this concubine in the future." Chapter 4687. Very good. Xiaohua smiles and takes out some rejuvenation pills from the space. He hands them to Jade Wave and says, "This is a pill refined by me. It's very useful for the transformation of the demon race. You might as well take it and give it to the children later." "Thank you, Taoist Master." Jade Wave is overjoyed. She hurriedly receives the jade bottle and says gratefully. After Jade Wave receives it, she thinks for a moment and says hesitantly, "Taoist Master, should this pill be taken separately or as a whole?" "It's better to take it as a whole." Xiaohua smiles. He seems to understand Jade Wave's meaning. Looking at her bulging belly, he says with a smile, "These pills are for the children. In the future, I will refine some more for you. Oh, you have to tell Xiaobai not to work too hard. Otherwise, I won't have any more pills for his children." Jade Wave is not a woman of the human race. She doesn't know too much about shyness. She proudly touches her belly and replies, "Darling Xiao is of the dragon race. He's full of energy. Taoist Master really has to work harder to refine more pills in the future." At this point, Jade Wave sneaks a glance at the seven-colored sea god shell and says in a low voice, "However, this time I'm not asking for it for myself." Sure enough, the seven-colored sea god shell says with a cold snort, "How can that lowly servant's child be worthy of Taoist Master Zhao's immortal pill?" Xiaohua is surprised and says in confusion, "Why? Is there a child? Is it Xiaobai's child?" Yes. Jade Wave hurriedly nods when she sees Xiaohua's attention. Xiaohua smiles and asks Jade Wave, "Since it's Xiaobai's child with someone else, you won't be jealous?" "What's jealous?" Jade Wave doesn't understand. It's just jealousy." Xiaohua casually explains. He doesn't know if Jade Wave understands. Who knows that Jade Wave says with a smile, "Darling Xiao is of the dragon race. He was born a powerhouse. How can he only mate with me in his life? Moreover, as a dragon race, the more offspring he has, the better. Why should I be jealous? In the future, if he controls the Western Sea Dragon Palace, there will be many dragons, sea race and shell race that will mate with him. Heavens! Why is Little White's luck so good?" Hearing this, Xiaohua's blood boiled. He almost looked up to the sky and roared, "Damn it, why can't I be a demon? If I were a demon, I would marry 8 or 10 little girls." Taoist Master. Just when Xiaohua's mind was restless, Jade Wave said in a low voice, "Do you want to see Xiaohua's other children?" Yes. Xiaohua hurriedly nodded and asked, "Where are they?" "Ancestor." Jade Wave looked at the seven-colored sea god shell and cried out in a pleading tone. "Umph." The seven-colored sea god shell let out a cold snort and a gray shadow appeared on the shell once more. The shadow turned into a giant hand that violently stabbed into the void and then casually pulled. Boom. A pillar of water rushed out from the void. Inside this wave, a conch lady stood up in a daze. "Ancestor." When the conch girl saw the seven-colored seashell, she hurriedly got up and bowed. Then she bowed to Jade Wave and said, "Greetings to Miss. However, when she saw Xiaohua clearly, she was stunned. A layer of mist appeared in her eyes and the expression on her face showed that she wanted to get close to him but didn't dare to. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, "This old man is Xiaohua, Taoist Master Xiao, not Little White Dragon." Taoist Master Xiao? The conch girl was shocked. She hurriedly transformed into her human form and bowed. This concubine greets Taoist Master Xiao. This concubine has heard Xiaohua talk about Taoist Master before. You can't even tell your own husband apart and you still have the nerve. The seven-colored sea god shell sneered coldly. Where are Xiaohua's children? Jade Wave hurriedly said, Taoist Master Xiao wants to see this. The conch girl hesitated. The seven-colored sea god shell said impatiently, I told you to bring them out, so bring them out. Yes. The conch girl's figure trembled, looking very scared. A gray halo appeared on the hard shell around her body. Then, several conches and several large loaches also flew out from the halo. However, these conches and loaches couldn't fly. They relied on the halo of the conch girl to fly in the air. What was special was that whether it was the halo of the conch girl or the conches and loaches, they were all gray. Seeing this, Xiaohua immediately understood why the seven-colored sea god shell hated the conch girl and her children. Xiaohua smiled faintly and took out a few jade bottles from his space. He handed them to the conch girl and said, These are some pills that this Xiao refined. They may be useful for the transformation of the demon race. You might as well take them. When your child grows up, take them together. Thank you, Taoist Master. Thank you, Taoist Master. The conch girl was very happy. After receiving the jade bottles, she said gratefully, Go take good care of the children. If there are any mistakes, this old one will hold you responsible. Seeing the conch girl take the jade bottles, the seven-colored sea god shell said coldly. He waved his hand again, imprisoning the conch girl and her children. With a flash of light, the conch girl and the conch girl disappeared. Seeing the seven-colored sea god shell's completely different attitude towards Bai Bo and the conch girl and her children, Xiaohua wanted to say something, but he still swallowed the words. On one hand, this was other people's family matter. Xiaohua couldn't butt in. On the other hand, they were of the sea race. As a human, he couldn't even listen to the word, mating. There was no need to talk about other secrets and habits. Xiaohua didn't want to talk about the children of the main wife and concubines, so he changed the topic and said, Senior, this junior doesn't understand. Why is it that the dragon race doesn't have many children when they mate within the race, but after mating with other races they have many children? This old one isn't of the dragon race. How could I know? The seven-colored sea god shell's words choked Xiaohua. However, Xiaohua didn't care. He looked at Bai Bo again and said with a smile, If nothing unexpected happens, Bai Bo will give birth to a few more children in a few days. Senior's bloodline will increase again. Hearing Xiaohua looking for something to say, the seven-colored sea god shell ignored him. It just waved its illusionary arm and grabbed at the naughty little loaches. These little loaches hid here and there, not letting the arm grab them. It was as if they were hiding from the seven-colored sea god shell. After a few times, the seven-colored sea god shell asked again, Taoist Xiao, what do you want to say? There's no harm in saying it. Why are you hiding from this old one? Cough cough. Xiaohua coughed and said with a smile, This junior doesn't have anything special to say. It's just that seeing senior enjoying the happiness of family is really a blessing. If we can't avoid the disaster of strange insects, this happiness is a bit short. This old one wants to enjoy more happiness, but this old one also knows her own limits. This old one doesn't have the ability to stop this apocalyptic omen. The seven-colored sea god shell simply made it clear. What if I have a way? Senior, can you help me with all your strength? Xiaohua asked with a smile. Of course I can. The seven-colored sea god shell answered without hesitation. In the face of this apocalyptic omen, even if this old one has a deep hatred for you, this old one can't not consider helping you. After all, on these three continents, there are already children of this old one's bloodline. If I can help them find a way to survive, this old one is also willing. That's good. Xiaohua nodded and told the whole story of his participation in the Jade Pool gathering in full detail. In the end, he said, Heterogeneous true qi is the natural nemesis of these strange insects. We only need to find the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent and bring the Dawn Rain continent's spiritual herbs and other things here. Then we can exterminate these strange insects one by one. The seven-colored sea god shell frowned and listened to Xiaohua's words. Then it bluntly shattered Xiaohua's hope. What you said is too ideal. In this old one's opinion, it is somewhat unrealistic. First of all, there is no space passage to the outside world from the three continents. Unless you can find an ancient relic like the Star Moon Palace, then you can leave the three continents. Secondly, the strange insects are hidden in the void, and there are more than tens of thousands of them. Even if you can return to the Dawn Rain continent and get the spiritual herbs, how many spiritual herbs can you get to exterminate these strange insects one by one? This old one also told you clearly before that if you want to exterminate these strange insects, you have to leave no one alive. As long as a thumb-sized strange insect is left, it will definitely reproduce. At that time there will be another apocalyptic omen. Senior, don't worry. After Xiao Hua learned the truth about the 4 continents in the moon-embracing palace, he had been thinking about it. Now that he had a plan, he said with a smile, "This Xiao still has a secret about the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent that I haven't told you yet." Speak. The Rainbow Sea God Seashell said snappily. Actually, from what this junior knows, the realm where the Dawn Rain continent is located is not another realm. It is a realm that is connected to the 3 continents. This realm should be called the 4 continents. Xiao Hua explained, however, in ancient times, because the Tao sect, Confucian cultivators, Buddhism sect, and the demon clan were constantly fighting, the 4 continents almost collapsed and were destroyed. Therefore, the immortal realm, the heavenly palace, and the demon realm joined forces to set up 3 layers of innate divine restriction, separating the Tao sect of the Dawn Rain continent from the demon clan, Confucian cultivators, and Buddhism sect of the 3 continents. Oh, how is that possible? The Rainbow Sea God Seashell was also stunned. She cried out in disbelief. The 3 continents were actually imprisoned by the immortal realm? Where did you learn this from? Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't tell her about the Star Moon Fairy. He said with a smile, "Senior, don't forget where this Xiao came from. Although this matter has been buried in the dust since ancient times and the supremes of the various sects may not know about it, this Xiao Hua came to the 3 continents from the Dawn Rain continent. I don't need to know too many secrets. I can infer it from all kinds of clues. Oh right, this Xiao Hua has also met the Supreme Purity Palace Master and the Supreme Purity Palace Master of the Immortal Palace. Their clones have also been reincarnated to the Dawn Rain continent. When this Xiao Hua tells them a little, they will definitely understand. Also, didn't Senior always want to ask where this Xiao Hua obtained Bei Ming's body? Now this Xiao Hua can honestly tell Senior that this Xiao Hua saw it when this Xiao Hua passed through the Great Array. Presumably, Senior Bei Ming wanted to come to the 3 continents and accidentally encountered the passage of the Immortal Array. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it and reward it. Thank you for all kinds of support. Chapter 4688. I see. I get it now. If that's the case, then it explains why there are no spatial passages around the 3 continents. Hearing Xiao Hua mention Bei Ming, the 7-colored sea god shell's expression turned slightly better. He nodded slightly and said, "Actually, the edges of any world are where the laws of heaven and earth are condensed. These laws of heaven and earth can't be perfectly converged in many places, so it's inevitable that there will be some flaws that lead to outside of the world. I was originally wondering why the 3 continents didn't have such flaws, but now I understand that these flaws have been sealed." So, Xiao Hua said word by word, "Since we can't find the spatial passage to the Dawn Rain continent, we might as well start from breaking the restriction. As long as this great formation collapses, the foreign true energy of the Dawn Rain continent will rush over, and all the strange insects will be killed without us needing to do anything." You're right. And it's also the only way to kill the strange insects. The 7-colored sea god shell replied indifferently. Unfortunately, you forgot. This is the innate divine restriction that separates the 4 continents. But it was set up by the immortals of the immortal world. How can you break it? What methods do you have to break it? And according to what I know, Bei Ming's strength should be far beyond yours, but he can't. Actually, Senior doesn't know. This great formation was set up in the ancient times until today, who knows how many years it has existed. Time has always been the most fundamental weapon to break formations. Over the years, the spell formation had long since been eroded and destroyed by the mutation of true energy. It's just that we don't know. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Otherwise, how can I go from the Dawn Rain continent to the 3 continents? How can Senior Bei Ming find the passage? If we can find the flaw or the core of the array, we might be able to break the array." The 7-colored sea god shell chuckled and said, "Enlightened beings should discuss this with Immortal Emperor Go Chen and Mahavarokana revered sage, or find Ao Jia and the other dragons on Dragon Island. Maybe they can leave behind an ancient inheritance and know how to break the formation. If they want to find it, Senior should also find it." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "In this world, who can surpass the 9th level of origin energy? Other than Senior, who else can it be? If I don't discuss it with Senior, who else can I discuss it with?" Who told you that I have the ability to surpass ninth grade essence force? The rainbow sea god seashell pursed its lips and refused to admit it. Gauchan old man knows, Mahavarakana revered one knows, Aojia knows, the Xiao also knows. Xiao Hua calmly gave him a high hat. Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua, this old woman really admires you. You beat around the bush to pull this old woman into action, but did you know? I've already done enough for you. The rainbow sea god shell sneered as she covered her chest with her hand when she heard the laughter. Oh, Senior. Xiao Hua was greatly puzzled and asked curiously, what other great things did Senior do that this Xiao doesn't know about? At this point, Xiao Hua was suddenly startled and cried out in disbelief. Could it be? Unfortunately, before Xiao Hua could finish, the rainbow sea god seashell waved its hand and said, Jade Wave, you take the child and go first. I'll send the little white dragon back after he finishes his training in the wondrous lotus pool. There was no need for Jade Wave to reply. The rainbow sea god seashell sent her and the dozen or so multicolored shells and multicolored little loaches into the void. After the rainbow sea god seashell withdrew its arm, Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the rainbow sea god seashell. He smiled and said, when this Xiao heard the news of the West Sea Dragon King's disappearance, this Xiao felt that it was a bit strange. The West Sea Dragon King is a ninth grade essence force dragon. There might be some accidents in other places, but this is the West Sea. This is his nest, how could there be any accidents? Moreover, after this Xiao saw the real monstrous insect king, this Xiao was even more puzzled. However, since the Dragon King of the East Sea Ao Qian was unwilling to agree to this Xiao's conditions, this Xiao was too lazy to think about it. But this Xiao had never thought that. The instigator was Senior. This Xiao really admires Senior. At this point, no matter how the Dragon King of the East Sea tries to stop him, the West Sea Dragon Palace will inevitably have a new master. Don't look at this old one like that. The rainbow sea god seashell was smug, but she still smiled and said, this old one did it on purpose. This old one brought Little White to the West Sea's wondrous lotus pool for training, and coincidentally came across the West Sea Dragon King and the monstrous insect king fighting. This old one only casually moved my pinky, that's all. My goodness. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Senior's pinky changed the West Sea's master. Who else in this world can compare to Senior? Don't say so much useless things. The rainbow sea god seashell waved her hand and said, tell me, how did you negotiate with Ao Qian that day? Xiao Hua recounted what happened that day and said in the end, this Xiao did not intend to make Ao Qian agree. In the future, when our fortune gate establishes a foothold in the West Sea, wouldn't the West Sea belong to our fortune gate? Ao Qian doesn't have the final say on who becomes the master of the West Sea. Isn't your fortune gate located in the soaring Dragon Mountain range? When are you coming to the West Sea? The rainbow sea god seashell obviously didn't know about the Tao Gate. Hee, let's not talk about this first. Xiao Hua smiled and said, what about the West Sea Dragon King's corpse and his Dragon Emperor? This is the most important thing. Why are you asking this? The rainbow sea god seashell glanced at Xiao Hua and said, could it be that you don't believe this old one? It's not that I don't believe you. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this Xiao knows that Senior is an expert who hates the trivial matters of the mortal world. Now that you have to step into the mortal world for the sake of your descendants, this junior is worried that Senior will be overworked, so this junior wants to help Senior share the burden. Your words are better than a song. You think this old one can't see through your intentions. How could the rainbow sea god seashell believe him? She coldly snorted and said, but you don't need to worry, this old one has already handed those things to Little White. That's good, that's good. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded, since Senior has already made a decision, this junior will not mention this matter again. Do as you wish. The rainbow sea god seashell lazily waved her hand. If there's nothing else, this old one will go and rest for a while. After a year or so, this old one will release Little White from the wondrous lotus pool. Don't. Xiao Hua hurriedly blocked the rainbow sea god seashell and said with a smile, this junior hasn't seen Senior for a long time, this junior misses Senior. I still want to talk to Senior more. Who would believe that? The rainbow sea god seashell said with a smile, if you use this to deceive a human girl, you might succeed. But to use it on a shell race like this old one, you are really casting pearls before swine. Then this Xiao won't hide it from Senior. Xiao Hua straightforwardly said, because of the world-destroying strange insects predicament, my Tao Gate has also obtained an opportunity to develop. The Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect have already agreed to let the Tao Gate in the West Sea. Xiao Hua recounted the Tao Gate's development in the West Sea to Huang Xiaolong, and finally said, "The reason I came to the West Sea is to find an immortal island or a blessed land for my fortune gate to build a good foundation for our future development." This Xiao didn't expect to run into Senior so soon after arriving at the West Sea. Maybe Senior was sent by the heavens to give this Xiao some guidance. How many of my descendants have your fortune gate's 200,000 troops killed? How can this old one look for a paradise for the fortune gate's disciples? The rainbow sea god Seashell sneered and said, "This old one is not so magnanimous." Xiao Hua was helpless, but he still didn't want to give up and said, "Senior, you can think about it." Previously, there were no fortune gate's disciples in the West Sea, and too many of the dragon race and sea tribes in the West Sea Dragon Palace were killed. If the world-destroying strange insect appears, your descendants will also suffer. My fortune gate's disciples came to the West Sea to solve your worries. You can't just watch as my fortune gate's disciples don't even have a place to stay, right? If you don't have a place to stay, then fly in the sky. The rainbow sea god Seashell coldly said, "If that doesn't work, then go to the West Sea Dragon Palace, that place is big. Although this old one has agreed to lend you a hand, that is only to stop the world-destroying omen, it has nothing to do with your fortune gate's survival. Moreover, if you can't find a way to exterminate the world-destroying strange insect, the 3 mainlands will disappear in 100 years. So what if your fortune gate finds a so-called immortal island? It will still be swallowed by the world-destroying omen. Let me tell you, the world-destroying omen loves places with rich origin energy. The more you look for an immortal island, the easier it is for you to be attacked by the world-destroying omen. You might as well find a rundown place and deal with them as you wish, waiting for your death." The rainbow sea god Seashell's body flickered with a dark gray light, and ripples appeared in the void around it. However, at the same time, more than a dozen thumb-sized world-destroying omen rushed out recklessly towards the rainbow sea god Seashell's dark gray light. The 7-colored sea god Shell coldly snorted and completely ignored these monstrous insects. Boom, boom, boom. As the monstrous insects swallowed the gray shadow and exploded at the same time, the 7-colored sea god Shell's figure flickered and disappeared into the void. This old seashell is really stubborn. No wonder he ran into world-destroying omen the moment he stepped out. Xiao Hua watched the 7-colored seashell leave and inwardly criticized. However, what this guy said also makes sense. That red mist monstrous insect likes to eat true chi the most. Now that it's looking for an immortal mountain or a paradise in the sea, it's just looking for trouble. It's better to find a reef to settle down. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 4689. However, a moment later, Xiao Hua smiled wryly. Didn't the fortune gate come to the West Sea to kill those mayflies? They found a mountain range and blessed land and set up an ambush. Are they inviting the insects into the trap? Forget it, I don't need to worry about this matter. Xiao Hua was a little irritated. He took out the Kunlun mirror and asked Princess Zixia to come out. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Zixia, take me to the West Sea Dragon Palace." "No problem." Princess Zixia quickly identified the direction and led Xiao Hua to a certain place. After flying for a while, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out the Pegasus flying chariot. The Pegasus flying chariot could be considered an old monster with many years of experience. It raised its head and let out a long neigh that sounded like a dragon's roar. Hehe, this concubine has long heard that darling Xiao has a Pegasus flying chariot, but I have never sat on it. Seeing it today, it is indeed amazing. Princess Zixia covered her mouth and giggled. Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, "Really? You have never sat on it before? What do you think?" Princess Zixia rolled her eyes and retorted, "Hehe, you are the immortal palace's princess, what kind of honor haven't you seen?" Xiao Hua couldn't remember if Princess Zixia had sat on it before, so he could only say embarrassedly, "I was afraid you would laugh at me for being shabby, that's why I didn't dare to take it out." Princess Zixia knew that Xiao Hua was being perfunctory, but she acted as if she didn't know. She held Xiao Hua's hand and flew onto the flying chariot. She smiled and said, "As long as it is something that belongs to me, no matter how expensive it is, I like it." Xiao Hua accompanied Princess Zixia on the flying chariot. At this time, the Pegasus flying chariot did not need to be steered. It only pointed in a direction and flew off. The clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and a scorching sun appeared. The countless rays of light were like pillars of light that pierced through the heavens and the earth, towering above the surface of the sea. The layers of clouds gradually took on various shapes in the wind. Xiao Hua sighed and said, Such a beautiful scenery is actually going to be destroyed by those monstrous insects. It is truly a pity. Yes. Princess Xixia also sighed. We Confucian cultivators have developed on the hidden immortal mainland for God knows how many years. Our Confucian skills have greatly improved and profound knowledge. These are more dazzling than natural scenery. What a pity if we don't have an effective method to kill the mayfly monstrous insect. All of this will turn into nothing. When Xiao Hua came out of the moon-embracing palace, he still hadn't discussed the details with Princess Xixia. Now that he had some free time, Xiao Hua told Princess Xixia the truth about the 4 great continents. Princess Xixia was dumbfounded. In the end she shook her head and said, "Impossible, impossible. The 4 great continents only existed within the teachings of the Buddhist sect. The 3 continents were indeed the 3 continents. How could it be the 4 great continents? Moreover, the Tao sect had long been jointly annihilated by us Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect during the ancient times. How could it possibly still exist in Dawn Rain continent? The other 4 continents that are similar to the hidden immortal continent?" Xiao Hua smiled. Not to mention Princess Xixia, even he himself felt that it was inconceivable when he heard that the Tao sect had been annihilated on the day he arrived at the hidden immortal continent. The Immortal Palace, Lane Temple and Great Sage Hall had said since the ancient times that the Immortals and Buddhas had annihilated the Tao sect. This saying had been passed down for God knows how many years. Princess Xixia was even the princess of the Immortal Palace. She had been instilled with this idea since she was young. But now she was suddenly told that everything she knew was false. The Tao sect still existed. Moreover, the Tao sect was previously more powerful than the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, and the demon race. How could she accept this? Xiao Hua smiled slightly. He raised his hand and waved. The diagram of the 3 continents appeared on the flying carriage. He said with a smile, "Xixia, look. To the north is the 1,000-demon sacred realm, to the east is the hidden immortal mainland, and to the south is the western paradise. The 4 seas have surrounded the 3 continents." As he spoke, Xiao Hua pointed again. At the western ocean, a black line appeared. He said, "This is the innate divine restriction set up by the immortal world. This divine restriction and the other boundaries have separated the 3 continents into one boundary. And I, Xiao, was born outside of this divine restriction." As he spoke, Xiao Hua pointed with his hand and the outline of the Dawn Rain continent appeared. However, I, Xiao, was only a small foundation establishment cultivator at that time. I didn't have a clear understanding of the entire Dawn Rain continent. Currently, I only know of the 3 cultivation countries and the country of sword cultivators. However, it is said that outside the Million Ming Mountains, there is a powerful cultivation alliance. They should be the backbone of my Tao sect. This place is the ruins of a Buddhist sect. There are 10,000 Buddhas inside and there are many secrets of the Buddhist sect. Xixia, look again. Aren't these 4 continents the Dongxing Divine Continent, the Aparagodania Continent, the South Continent, and the North Continent of the 4 great continents? Xiao Hua asked with a smile after the outline of the 4 great continents gradually became clear. Even if it is the 4 continents, it is still a coincidence. The shock on Princess Xixia's face gradually disappeared, but confusion gradually returned. She still shook her head. Xiao Hua held Princess Xixia's somewhat cold hand and said, "Xixia, do you still remember the Heaven's Heart?" When Princess Xixia heard this, her delicate body trembled. She seemed to understand what Xiao Hua wanted to say. After a moment, she asked with a trembling voice, "You mean, your Heaven's Heart were all obtained in the Dawn Rain continent?" "Before I obtained your half of the Heaven's Heart, I already had 4 Heaven's Hearts." Xiao Hua looked at Princess Xixia with some heartache. He somewhat understood Princess Xixia's panic and patiently explained, "Of the 2 Heaven's Hearts, one was obtained in the wilderness of the Dawn Rain continent. That place was originally a space that was about to collapse, and there was a scholarly cultivator inside. I don't know who this scholarly cultivator was because after I obtained the Heaven's Heart, the space collapsed and everything ceased to exist. The other Heaven's Heart was obtained by Ji-Man in the Million Ming Mountains. She can be considered a scholarly cultivator's descendant. As for the other 2 Heaven's Hearts, I naturally obtained them in the 3 continents. However, I won't tell you where I obtained them. After all, it was already a matter of the ancient era. If I tell you now, it will cause some factions to have a dispute. Actually, just based on the 2 Heaven's Hearts I obtained from the Dawn Rain continent, I can almost be sure that the Dawn Rain continent was originally together with the 3 continents. It was only because of the Great War that my Taoist sect was separated from the scholarly cultivators, Buddhist sect, and demon race. If it was anything else, Princess Zixia would definitely be suspicious. However, when the Immortal Palace's most important Heaven's Heart and the 5 Qis unifications technique were mentioned, Princess Zixia slowly understood. If the Heaven's Heart was lost in the Dawn Rain continent, perhaps it could be said that someone took the Heaven's Heart and went to another realm. However, there were 2 Heaven's Hearts. How could there be so many coincidences? Only a natural chasm that separated the 4 continents could perfectly explain this matter. Moreover, Princess Zixia was born in the Immortal Palace. Although she didn't control the Tianji Palace, she was still an extremely important person among the true scholarly cultivators. She definitely knew more secrets than Xiaohua. Now that she thought about it carefully, how could a powerful Taoist sect be destroyed so easily? Just Xiaohua alone, just Grand Mist Ancestor alone was enough to give the Immortal Palace a headache. No matter what, a powerful Taoist sect wouldn't be so easily submerged in the passage of time. Chapter 4690. Princess Zixia didn't say anything. She closed her eyes tightly. After the time it took to eat half a meal, she opened her eyes and said with a wry smile, "My dear Xiao, this information of yours is really inconceivable. But after thinking about it carefully, it seems reasonable enough. If this news were to spread to the 3 mainlands, it would definitely cause a great uproar and even cause panic." Panic? Why would they panic? Xiaohua looked pensive. That's right, panic. Princess Zixia nodded. A kind of collapse of faith, a kind of collapse of trust. We have always been proud of our ancestors' achievements, and the glory of the Immortal and Buddha eradicating the Tao has always shone in the 3 mainlands. Now that the truth is out, everyone immediately understands that the so-called glory, the so-called pride, is nothing but a lie. We have been living in a lie for generations. Think about my reaction just now, even I can't accept it. What about the other Confucian disciples? What about the other Buddhist disciples? Therefore, now is not the best time to announce it. Xiaohua probed. That's right. Princess Zixia answered. This matter is only suitable for the various sects' venerables to know, and only they can help you find the clues to break the grand formation. When the mayfly insect's crisis reaches its peak, presumably, the various sects' venerables will have the confidence to break the grand formation. At that time, we can announce this matter. Although at that time, everyone might not be able to accept it, under such a great calamity, everyone will still think about their own survival, and will minimize the impact of this news to the lowest. After that, Princess Zixia explained again, and only then did Xiaohua understand. Perhaps finding the truth was simple, but how to announce the truth to the public was an extremely difficult matter. A single careless action could pierce through the bottom line of a sect's trust. Moreover, if Xiaohua announced this matter publicly, it might cause people with ulterior motives to take advantage of it, making Xiaohua and the Fortune Gate public enemy. At that time, not only would Xiaohua be unable to defend himself, he would not have the chance to explain, and he would not have the opportunity to resist the mayfly insects. He might even start a real war with the Confucian cultivators and Buddhist sects. And I understand. Zixia, it's all thanks to you. Xiaohua held Princess Zixia's hand and said with a smile, with a virtuous wife like you, I'm relieved. Princess Zixia smiled sweetly and replied, this kind of thing is the Immortal Palace's imperial technique. It's normal that you don't know about it. Is there an imperial husband technique? Xiaohua asked with a grin as he squeezed Princess Zixia's hand. Without anyone else around, Princess Zixia's shyness wasn't that bad. She also curled her lips and used her hand to pinch Xiaohua's hand. She smiled and said, you'll naturally know in the future. Speaking up to this point, Princess Zixia looked into the distance again and said worriedly, Darling Xiao, as far as I know, the Celestial Palace has never mentioned the 4 great continents. It's very likely that even Her Majesty herself doesn't know about this. What's your plan now? Let's not talk about finding a way to the Dawn Rain continent outside the realm for now. When Xiaohua heard this, he frowned and said, even people as strong as Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji said that there is no spatial passageway leading to the outer realm. Presumably, the Khanate spatial passageway has been covered by a large array. I'm afraid that the matter I discussed with His Majesty and the others will not succeed. Now the plan is to break the array. This is an immortal array that covers the entire realm. Princess Zixia reminded, even if the venerables find clues, I'm afraid they won't be able to break the array. Didn't I say earlier that this array has been laid down for a long time? If it didn't work before, it might work now. Xiao Hua forced a smile and said, "Today's plan is to find clues to break the array first. If we don't even have a clue, how can we break the array?" The most frightening thing is, Princess Zixia was more far-sighted. The Jade Lake Conference has just ended, and the Venerables are planning how to deal with the red mist insects. If they gather for a discussion, it will be quite troublesome. If we let the disciples pass the message, we're afraid that the news will leak out. Heavenly Being Lightning Taoist, and the others can naturally pass the message on my behalf. Xiao Hua pondered. However, if they go, the Fortune Gate's disciples will encounter the red mist insects. I'm not at ease. How about this, Zixia? You accompany me to various places and find the Venerables to discuss in detail. This concubine is willing to stay by this Xiao's side, rushing about for the survival of the 3 mainland's billions of people. Princess Zixia's face blushed as she answered in a low voice. Seeing Princess Zixia's shy face, Xiao Hua's heart was moved. He reached out his right hand and wrapped it around Princess Zixia's slender waist. Sensing Xiao Hua's intention, Princess Zixia couldn't bear to refuse. Her other hand also held Xiao Hua's hand at her waist. "Ai, what a smart female cultivator." Xiao Hua sighed. His hand was held by Princess Zixia, so he could no longer move freely. Princess Zixia happily leaned on Xiao Hua's shoulder. She didn't brush Xiao Hua's face, but it also made him feel sweet. However, the two of them had just enjoyed a sweet meal when Xiao Hua suddenly frowned. His divine sense seemed to have sensed something, and he muttered under his breath, "What time is it now?" Saying this, Xiao Hua pulled his hand out from Princess Zixia's and pointed in another direction, saying in a low voice, "Pegasus, go there." The Pegasus was very obedient. It didn't let out a long cry, and with a wave of its wings of light, it changed direction and rushed towards the direction of the sunset. The West Ocean was vast and boundless. Aside from the surging waves, there were also many places with reefs. At this moment, when the sun was setting in the west, its blood-red brilliance was sprinkled on a group of reefs that stretched for several thousand li. The reefs here were a little different from the others. Only a small part of them were colorful coral reefs. Most of them were yellowish-brown in color. Some of these reefs were like mountain peaks, and a lot of them were exposed to the sea. Some reefs were like sharp cones that pierced out of the water surface, covering many parts of the water. Of course, there were even more reefs that were like large and small stones that were not near the water surface, letting the waves slap them and causing them to foam like cotton wool. The brilliance of the setting sun was somewhat slanted downwards, and one could see several hundred miles away from the reef. Woo-woo. The waves churned and the wind howled. A dragon several hundred feet long rushed out from the bottom of the sea. The moment the dragon rushed out, it immediately roared at the sky. In an instant the sky changed color. The originally clear sky was covered by dark clouds, and even the blood-red sun was blocked behind the clouds. Wasn't this dragon the third prince of the Western Sea Dragon Palace, Aoing? Third prince. After Aoing, several more dragons flew out. The first one chased after Aoing and shouted, "Third prince, third prince." Chapter 4691. Aoing, the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, snorted coldly when he saw the dragon chasing after him. He swung his dragon tail at the dragon. Boom! The dragon tail smashed down like a mountain. The dragon was stunned for a moment before helplessness appeared on his face. He did not dare to meet the attack head-on and allowed Ao Ying's dragon tail to smash down. Third prince. A few dragon generals saw Ao Ying's dragon tail like a scissor and their expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly shouted from the side. Ao Ying suddenly snorted coldly when the dragon tail was about to hit the dragon general. He swept his dragon tail horizontally and brushed past the dragon general's body. The tail swept across the surface of the sea and a reef that was a few miles in size was swept by the dragon tail. Boom! The reef was smashed into pieces by Ao Ying's dragon tail. Third prince. The dragon general did not look at the surface of the sea. Instead, he hurriedly flew over and said carefully, "Why are you so calculative over a momentary loss? If you are angered over such a small matter, wouldn't you fall into their trap?" "Is this a small matter? Aobai?" It would have been better if the dragon general did not mention it. Once he heard the dragon general's words, Aoing flew into a rage and shouted, "I am the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace. They actually ordered me to patrol the sea. They are humiliating me as a patrol." Yes. I know how angry the third prince is. The dragon general named Aobai said with a smile, but they are now valued by the Dragon Island's Dragon Envoy and temporarily control the Dragon Palace. Their words are the orders of the Dragon Palace. We can't disobey the orders of the Dragon Palace. Another dragon general next to him also advised, Third Crown Prince, please calm down. Besides, their orders aren't only directed at Third Crown Prince. Fourth Crown Prince, Sixth Crown Prince and Seventh Crown Prince were also sent to patrol the other 3 areas of the West Sea. Now that strange insects have appeared in the West Sea, if we do not strengthen the patrol, I'm afraid there will be an accident. What accident can there be? Father has been missing for so long. The Sea Clan and Dragon Clan that followed him were all killed. Aoing said coldly, is there an accident worse than this? Although His Majesty the Dragon King is temporarily missing, the West Sea Dragon Palace is still there. Aobai advised again, this is the foundation of the West Sea Dragon Clan. There can't be any mistakes in this foundation. The West Sea Dragon Clan naturally has a reason to patrol the sea. Your Majesty's Dragon Palace's Majesty the Dragon Palace's Dragon Palace. But this dragon envoy is strange. Another dragon by the side asked curiously, last time, it was His Highness who led our West Sea Dragon Clan to Dragon Island to train. He should have a deep impression of His Highness. Why is it that when they arrived at the West Sea Dragon Palace, they are actually so close to them? Aobai knew better. Last time I almost lost my life on Dragon Island. After coming out of the Stacked Jade Legacy Land, I rushed back to the Dragon Palace and neglected the social activities on Dragon Island. Actually, it's not just me. The princes of the East Sea Dragon Palace and the South Sea Dragon Palace are the same. The 7th prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace even died in the Stacked Jade Legacy Land. Yes. Aobai echoed, that day the 3rd prince was decisive. He handled the matter of the Stacked Jade Legacy Land very well. After returning, he got His Majesty's approval. Thinking of that day, I'm so proud of the 3rd prince. His Majesty's heart is obviously biased. Alas. Aoing sighed again, this king's luck is really bad. Actually, it's not necessarily so. Aobai laughed again, don't humans have a classic story of enduring hardships to seek revenge? Your Majesty might as well imitate it. Yes. 3rd prince, do you know the 10th prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, Aofeng? That guy endured for 300 years and was ridden by a monk for 300 years. In the end he achieved success and fame. Not only did he get the Buddha fruit of the Buddhism sect, he also got the approval of the Dragon King of the East Sea to officially enter the Crown Prince Long Su and have the chance to inherit the Dragon Throne of the East Sea? Disgusting. Disgusting. Aoing shouted. He was ridden by a human for 300 years. Don't mention this in front of this king. Ha. Aobai laughed. Of course, Ao Shun's comparison is inappropriate. Aofeng naturally can't be compared with the 3rd prince. He's just an illegitimate 10th prince, while the 3rd prince is the top successor. However, Ao Shun's words are reasonable. The 3rd prince has to listen to him. We'll endure this difficult period for the time being and minimize the influence of the Dragon Envoy. With the 3rd prince's reputation in the Dragon Palace, how can the 1st prince be his opponent? Won't the Dragon Throne of the Dragon King of the West Sea belong to the 3rd prince sooner or later? Aoing smiled coldly and said, this king has never taken Ao Chen seriously. He's too confident. He thinks that he's the 1st prince and is the closest to the Dragon Throne. He doesn't listen to father in many places. In the palace, there are other dragon palaces of the other 3 seas. He doesn't have many friends. If not for the appearance of the Dragon Envoy he would have. Seeing Ao Ying's confidence, Aobai smiled bitterly and said, 3rd prince, times have changed. You must not be careless. After all, the 1st prince is the 1st prince. He has the moral high ground. The Dragon Envoy of the Dragon Island has no better choice but to rely on the 1st prince. I know. Aoing glared at Aobai and said, am I not building a good relationship with the 1st prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Xiang? He's temporarily staying in the Dragon Palace of the West Sea under the orders of the Dragon King of the East Sea. Isn't it a good opportunity for him to restrain the Dragon Envoy of the Dragon Island? That's good, that's good. Aobai nodded and smiled. With the 3rd prince's breadth of mind and strategy, you're the real master of the Dragon Palace of the West Sea. We all understand this. Actually, 3rd prince, I've forgotten. The most important thing is not within the Dragon Palace but outside of it. Ao Shun was not to be outdone. He suggested in a low voice, what's fought for in the Dragon Palace is prestige. What's fought for outside of the Dragon Palace is real power. The first prince is really stupid. He might have really forgotten about this and sent the few princes who are not on good terms with him out to patrol. He has a plan in mind to send the princes into danger. But at the same time, there are opportunities within danger, especially your highness. The sea region you're patrolling is not far from where His Majesty the Dragon King went missing. If you get the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace, why do you have to care about the dragon envoy of the Dragon Island and the first prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace? Why do you have to be calculative with the first prince? Chapter 4692. Don't think you're the only one who's smart. Ao Bai coldly glared at Ao Shun. He wasn't happy that Ao Shun had interrupted him. Those strange insects are really dangerous. According to the sea tribe members who had escaped, they could even swallow the dragon chi. How could the dragon emperor survive in the mouths of those strange insects? If the crown prince didn't know about this, he wouldn't have let us patrol the sea. Stop arguing. Ao Ing was a little annoyed and said coldly, if you can't even work together, how can I be happy? Yes, I know I'm wrong. Ao Bai and Ao Shun both lowered their heads and answered. At this time, dozens of members of the dragon clan and groups of members of the sea tribe appeared in the distant sea. They were the subordinates led by Ao Ing. It seems to be Lingbo Reef in front of us. As the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Ing was very familiar with the West Sea. After releasing his Yuan thought, he could easily determine his position. Ao Shun immediately smiled and said, Your Highness really knows the West Sea like the back of your hand. This is the Lingbo Reef area. When I was a patrol envoy a few years ago, I came here. Ao Ing sighed. His dragon body swayed as he flew towards Lingbo Reef. He continued shouting, You don't know this. When this king was young, I was rather naughty. I once snuck out of the dragon palace with Aou. Coincidentally, the two of us ran into several sea lion beasts. Those sea lion beasts actually dared to provoke us, so we fought with them and chased them all the way here. Who knew that the Lingbo Reef was the nest of those sea lion beasts? We were careless and were surrounded by adult sea lion beasts. If not for the West Sea Patrol envoy who happened to pass by and rescued Aou and me, the two princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace would have died in the mouth of those sea lion beasts. Your Highness has such an experience? Ao Shun was slightly stunned, while Ao Bai beside him smiled faintly and said, Your Highness is from the Dragon Clan. If you survive a great disaster, you will have good fortune in the future. If that's the case, then Aou is also blessed. Ao Ing replied impatiently, Let's go and have a look. I remember when Ao Chen heard about this, he immediately led more than 10,000 subordinates to kill all the sea lion beasts. After that, I flew by here a few times, but I didn't take a closer look. Crown Prince. Ao Shun opened his mouth wanting to say something, but he swallowed his words. This was because Ao Ing, who was in front of him, had already sighed. Time is like the waves of the sea. Once it passes Lingbo Reef, there is no turning back. Lingbo Reef is still Lingbo Reef, but the West Sea Dragon Palace is no longer the West Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Ing flew to the front of the Lingbo Reef and saw that the sun was setting. Arrows of light that were like blood shot down and dyed the reefs big and small into a strange blood-brown color. It looked like a layer of rust had covered the entire world. Ao Ing let out a long roar and pounced on one of the reefs. With a curl of its body, it crashed into one of the reefs. With a loud rumble, the reefs collapsed and fell into the sea, disappearing in an instant. Ah! Ao Ing laughed and flew into the depths of the reefs, just like when he chased the sea lion beasts with Aou in the past. Ao Shun and Ao Bai looked at each other and didn't dare to get too close to Ao Ing. The two dragons waved their dragon claws and dozens of dragons moved at the same time, flying over from both sides of the reefs. As for the thousands of members of the Sea Clan, they naturally formed a team and cautiously rushed into the reefs. The wind whistled and the waves crashed against the rocks. Because the gaps between the reefs were different, the waves were naturally different in size. The sound of the waves was also rhythmic. In the sky above Lingbo Reef there seemed to be music. Ao Ing narrowed his eyes and released his Yuan Shen. At the same time he pricked up his ears to listen carefully. The sound of the waves was like the sound of nature, calming his heart gradually. Seeing a mountain-like reefs appear in front of him, Ao Ing suddenly opened his eyes and roared at the reefs not far away. His entire dragon body immediately soared into the sky and two balls of fire flashed in his opened eyes. Boom boom boom. What responded to Ao Ing was not the sound of the Dragon Clan, nor the figure of the Sea Clan. Instead, it was the roar of the waves and the light that soared into the sky within 1,000 miles of Lingbo Reef. With the light and shadow, tens of thousands of yuan qi of heaven and earth fell from the sky like a flood. When these yuan qi of heaven and earth touched the light and shadow, they immediately turned into huge knots. The knots were of different sizes, and in a moment, the entire space was filled with them. Moreover, the roar above the sea gave birth to obscure waves. When the waves hit the reefs, layers of iron-blue ice fragments rapidly condensed on the reefs. Then, strands of dragon patterns quickly covered the entire surface of the sea faster than the light and shadow. Not good. Ao Ing noticed the abnormality in the sound of the waves and rushed into the sky without hesitation. However, Ao Shun, Ao Bai, and the other dragons were not so vigilant. It was only after the yuan qi of heaven and earth was formed in the space and the dragon patterns covered the surface of the sea that they realized. Ao Shun immediately roared, "The Sea Clan has set an ambush. Quick!" Ao Bai also did not expect that as a member of the West Sea Dragon clan, he would encounter an ambush in his own sea. Shocked, he hurriedly ordered, "Protect the third prince. Go!" Dozens of dragons shouted. They moved their bodies and rushed into the sky. These dragons either used their dragon claws to grab the knots of light or used their dragon horns to smash the light and shadow. With the attack of the dragon claws and dragon horns, countless hurricanes blew and countless spatial cracks appeared out of thin air. Rays of cold light and sharp aura rose from the bodies of the dragons. Boom, boom. The knots of light were easily broken by the dragon claws. Waves of light sounds like air explosions were produced as the knots of light exploded. Then, thin five-colored threads flew out of the knots of light and covered the area of several hundred feet around the dragons as if they were invisible. Roar. The five-colored threads fell gently and were even more silent than willow catkins. However, when they landed on the hard bodies of the dragons, all of them let out heart-wrenching roars. When the threads came into contact with the dragon's scales, they immediately emitted a sizzling sound of corrosion and penetrated the scales at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it. Seeing this, how could Ao Shun and the other dragons who were quick-witted dare to touch the knots of heaven and earth? Dragon chi and shadows appeared around them as they tried their best to shrink their bodies. They wanted to pass through the gaps of the knots of light and go to rescue Ao Ing. When the dragons rushed into the sky, there were naturally dragons who escaped into the West Sea. However, as soon as these dragons touched the surface of the sea, the dragon patterns on the surface of the sea immediately emitted an even thicker green luster. Bang bang bang. The sound of heavy objects hitting the surface of the sea was heard again. The surface of the sea was covered with a thick layer of ice. This layer of ice was so strange that even the powerful bodies of the dragons could not penetrate it. Chapter 4693. Woo woo. Most of the dragons in the Western Sea Dragon Palace were of the fire attribute. Naturally, some of them roared angrily and spat out flames from their mouths. Wherever the flames landed, the layers of ice rapidly melted and collapsed. However, when the dragons charged into the sea, before their bodies could pass through the layers of ice, the dragon tattoos pounced on them and covered their entire bodies in an instant. The dragons struggled with all their might. Their powerful strength first cracked the layers of ice, but the dragon tattoos were like thin threads that quickly merged into the dragon's body. In just a moment, the dragon was frozen to death in the layer of ice. Roar roar. The dragons were a little flustered. They could still struggle as they roared angrily, but the thousands of Sea Tribe members were even more helpless. Many Sea Tribe members were instantly frozen when they touched the dragon patterns. Even more Sea Tribe members wanted to rush into the sky, but they were trapped by the thin threads of the light knots. They wailed and rolled in the sky. Ao Ing rushed into the sky and dodged the light knots and dragon patterns on the sea surface. Before he could speak, 4 spindle-like dragon weapons appeared in the sky. The 4 dragon weapons made a buzzing sound as if they were responding to each other. Then, hundreds of tiny red dragons flew out from the 4 spinning dragon weapons. They seemed chaotic, but in fact they were flying in the sky in an orderly manner. Waves of dragons were either hidden in the void or flying high in the sky. In a moment they surrounded Ao Ing. Dragon. Dragon-trapped shuttle? Ao Ying's expression changed. The scattered light around him shone brightly as if it wanted to rush out. However, just as the scattered light rushed into the dragon form immediately pounced down from the sky. Layers of sharp sawtooth shapes appeared out of thin air. Wherever the sawtooth passed, a black and white aura was produced, and the void gradually collapsed. Ao Ying's dragon body flashed. The sawtooth streaked across the left side of his dragon body. A wisp of blood burst out from his dragon body, and several dragon scales were cut by the sawtooth. Damn it. Aoing gritted his teeth and looked angrily at the reef not far away. He shouted, "Which daring traitor dares to ambush this king in the West Sea?" Unfortunately, Ao Ying's anger did not summon the ambusher. Only screams sounded from the reef in the distance. Ao Ying's subordinates were killed one by one. Jiang Hong. Ao Ying pointed with his dragon claw and roared, "Don't think that just because you are hiding there, this king doesn't know that you are the one who ambushed this king. Your ambition is too great. My West Sea Dragon Palace has already issued a warning when you led the dragon clan into my West Sea territory. Now that you dare to ambush me here, it looks like you already intend to break off all relations with my dragon clan." Roar. With that, Ao Ying let out a loud roar. A scarlet dragon crown appeared on top of her dragon head. Under the brilliance of the dragon crown, Ao Ying's dragon body was protected. Clusters of flames also seeped out from the gaps between the dragon scales. These flames were red and black in color. The black flames were like Ao Ying's anger, burning the entire space. Ao Ying roared angrily and pounced towards the towering reef. The dragon horn emitted a scarlet-red beam of light that pierced straight into the reef. Boom. The reef collapsed in response. Above the reef, bursts of spatial ripples appeared, and a huge dragon-shaped figure flickered in the void like a flickering candlelight. Although the dragon figure was very blurry and constantly flickered in the setting sun, in Ao Ying's eyes, it was as if lightning had struck her. While Ao Ying's dragon body trembled, she cried out in disbelief, "You. It's actually you. Sai, third brother, why do you have to do this?" Seeing that his tracks were exposed, the dragon slowly revealed himself and sighed, "Since you already think that I am Jiang Hong from the Heavenly Abode River, you also know that you are powerless to escape this predicament. Sooner or later, you will die under this dragon coiling shuttle. There is no need to force me to show myself like this." Ah ha ha ha. Ao Ying didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Her roar tore the nearby dragon image apart. "If I didn't force you into a corner, how could I force you to show yourself? If I didn't see you with my own eyes, how would I know that my beloved second brother is actually lying in ambush here and wants to kill me with his own hands? Second brother, this is something that I never even dreamed of." This dragon was naturally the second prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Ao. At this moment, when Ao heard Ao Ying's words, a trace of guilt appeared in his eyes. He laughed dryly and said, "Third brother, it's not that I don't want to let you go. It's that you don't want to let me go. Do you still remember what I said to you before the dragon envoy came to my West Sea Dragon Palace?" "Of course I remember." Ao Ying's heart had already begun to turn cold. He looked at Ao and replied word by word, "Did I answer wrong? There is only one master of the West Sea Dragon Palace. You have the right to be the master and so do I. Why must I give it to you for no reason? To tell you the truth, other than you, Ao Chen also asked me the same question. I also gave the same answer. You and I are all crown princes. Since father didn't appoint anyone to be the master of the West Sea before he went missing, then we all have the qualifications to see who can ascend to the dragon throne of the West Sea with our own abilities." At this point, Ao Ying suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. He pointed his dragon claw at Ao in shock and said, "You. I understand now. You are actually in cahoots with Ao Chen, third brother." Ao did not answer Ao Ying's question. Instead, he shook his head and said, "You are very outstanding, so outstanding that I am jealous. However, you are too arrogant. You don't know that other than you, us crown princes have also sacrificed a lot for the Dragon Emperor. You always think that you are the only one who is favored by father. However, you don't know that father doesn't trust you the most." "Is there any use in saying all this now?" Ao Ying asked coldly. "Even if I heard the truth, would you let me go?" "Yes, there is no use in saying all this. When you rejected my good intentions, your fate was already decided." Ao replied calmly. "If I don't take advantage of this strange insect disaster to kill you, I'm afraid there won't be a good opportunity in the future." "Is it here?" Ao Ying looked around at the reef surrounded by the dragon formation and mocked, "Is it here where you and I almost died back then?" "That's right, it is here. If it wasn't for this place that made you sigh, how could you have fallen into the trap so easily?" Ao did not hide his scheme. At this time, near the light junction beside the dragon pattern, some dragons appeared and began to attack Ao Ying's subordinates. Ao Ying looked at Ao with sorrow in his eyes. He said softly, "Second brother, when I heard about Ao Chen of the South Sea Dragon Palace, I was shocked. Do you still remember what I said when father was forced to open the dragon palace by that bastard Xiaohua? Chapter 4694. Of course I remember. Aou replied calmly. You swore a dragon oath in front of father that you would never lay a hand on your brother. You would rather give up the position of Dragon Palace of the West Sea for your brotherhood. That's right. I still remember what happened that day. However, I never expected that the first person to raise the butcher's knife against me would not be the dragon clan of the heavenly abode, but my dearest second brother. It's not that you didn't think about it, it's that you didn't dare to think about it. Aou sneered. At that time, father was already in a terrible mood. We didn't dare to make father unhappy. However, no one was as bold as you to jump out and swear a dragon oath. Do you know how many princes you have offended with that dragon oath of yours? Old Seventh even mocked you in front of me and eldest brother. If he were to lay a hand on you, would you still remember your dragon oath? So, Ao Ying's face was as cold as ice. Are you testing me on behalf of Old Seventh? Just as Ao Ying said that, he suddenly swung his dragon body. His dragon horn glowed as it pierced towards Ao Yu's dragon body at lightning speed. Boom. There was a loud explosion as the light from the dragon horn swept through thousands of feet of space. The knots of light were like candlelight being extinguished by a strong wind. Even the dragon-slaying threads were like broken spiderwebs floating in the air. Where the dragon horn landed, Ao Yu's dragon body shattered into pieces. Pieces of greenish-brown boulders flew into the sky. Aha, Old Third, this is the dragon array. Do you think I will face you head-on? Ao Yu's voice sounded from another direction. His dragon body naturally appeared in the sky. Roar. Roar. Ao Ying seemed to have used some secret technique of the dragon clan. After his dragon horn dimmed, the dragon chi around him was quickly withdrawn. At the same time, the threads that had been swept away earlier strangely appeared in the wind again. They were like entangling threads of love that silently fell. Ao Ying was the same as the other dragons. Although huge dragon runes appeared on the dragon scales where the thin thread landed, trying to block it, sizzling sounds could be heard as the thin thread sank into the scales. Ao Ying could not help but cry out in pain as the huge dragon tail swung wildly in the wave reef. Damn it. Ao Ying opened his dragon's mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon's breath. Terrifying yuan qi descended from the sky and struck the light knots and thin threads that had quietly appeared. Unfortunately, neither the dragon's breath nor the yuan qi could destroy them. Instead, the thin threads became even clearer. Bone-splintering silk. Ao Ying's eyes were filled with hatred as he roared loudly, seemingly unwilling to accept this. Ao Yu, you actually used the bone-splintering silk to kill your own brother? I'm really disappointed in you. Hee, disappointed? You've been disappointed in so many things. Ao Yu sneered. If you were in my shoes, would you be able to guarantee your dragon oath? Can you guarantee that you won't attack the other brothers? Alright. Ao Ying shouted. Since you've already made the first move, then this king's dragon oath has naturally lost its effect. Don't blame this king for not showing mercy. At this point in time, how can there be any mercy left? Ao Ying, you're thinking too much. Ao Yu was not in a hurry as he spoke slowly. However, the dragon crown on Ao Ying's dragon head suddenly cracked inch by inch and a ruby-like jade seal was revealed. Once the jade seal was revealed, it immediately emitted sparks. The sparks landed in the air and created extremely hot ripples. Red Marquis Seal. Ao Yu saw the jade seal and could not help but be shocked. He shouted, the red Marquis Seal that was stolen from my West Sea Dragon Palace for 10,000 years is actually in your hands? You can go to hell. Ao Ying did not answer Ao Yu. His dragon horn emitted a brilliant light again as he activated the red Marquis Seal. A scorching flame soared into the sky and instantly enveloped the surrounding 50 kilometers. Within the flame, not only did the light knot and thin threads disappear, even the frozen surface of the sea melted instantly. What was even more terrifying was that the rocks of the Lingbo Reef turned into molten iron in the flame. Damn it. Ao Yu was panic-stricken. His body appeared in another direction. The void and the dragon scales had already lit up with thin strands of fire. Ha. Ao Yu, do you know what it means to go for wool and come home shorn? Ao Ying laughed maniacally as his dragon body regained its vitality. Just as he was about to pounce at Ao Yu, something strange happened. Within the slightly pitch-black flames, a sharp point that was hundreds of feet long suddenly flashed. There was also a layer of flames around the sharp point. The flames blocked Ao Ying's yuan psyche. When blood splattered, the sharp point easily stabbed into Ao Ying's dragon body. The dragon aura around Ao Ying rapidly dissipated. Furthermore, the red marquee seal above Ao Ying's head emitted a decadent aura. In the surrounding space, the invincible flames immediately disappeared. Ao Ying's dragon claw clawed back, wanting to grab the triple chestnut-shaped sharp point. However, where his dragon claw landed, the sharp point emitted a cold light and blocked his dragon claw. Ao Ying roared helplessly as his dragon body tumbled in the sky. An indescribable misery appeared in his eyes as his roar of disbelief resounded throughout the Lingbo Reef. I know. This is St. Zhang's dragon breaking all. Aou. You actually dared to lure the Saint River Dragon clan from the Western Paradise into my West Sea. At this moment there was a loud boom. Not far away, under the layer of ice that had already melted, a 5-colored flood dragon soared into the sky. That flood dragon landed in midair and smiled faintly. Although I am the young master of St. Jiang, I am also the prince consort of the West Sea Dragon Palace. If something happens to our West Sea Dragon Palace, as the prince consort, how can I just stand by and watch? Jing-ching. Ao Ying screamed crazily. I will not let you off even if I become a ghost, much less Ao Xian. Don't worry, you won't become a ghost. Ao Xian won't come to the West Sea either. The young master of the Saint River Dragon clan, Jing-ching, smiled faintly. He looked quite charming. When he looked at Ao Yu again, his previous panic immediately disappeared. He sneered. Ao Ying, don't think that no dragon clan can do anything to you just because you have the red marquee seal. I already knew that the red marquee seal was in your hands. However, at this point, something strange happened again. Chapter 4695. Unfortunately, before Ao Yu could finish his sentence, Ao Yu's voice suddenly became high-pitched. A scream came from his mouth. Looking at his dragon body that had not completely extinguished the flames, a dragon piercing all that was exactly the same as the one on Ao Ying's body appeared. At this time, the dragon piercing all rushed out from the bottom of the sea and pierced deeply into Ao Yu's heart. How is this possible? Ao Yu's face was filled with disbelief. He looked at Ao Ying's pain and then looked at the dragon piercing all on his dragon body. He roared, How can there be 2 dragon piercing alls? Jing-ching. Boom. At this time there was another roar. A dragon with green fog around her body rushed out from the bottom of the sea. The dragon's body looked a little petite. It was obviously a female dragon. Ao Xian? Ao Yu looked at the female dragon and cried out, You didn't go. However, at this moment, Ao Yu seemed to have understood something no matter how foolish he was. Sure enough, Ao Ying, who was in extreme pain earlier, suddenly stopped his rolling dragon body in the sky. With a cold smile on his face, he said, Yes, big sister was going to attack old Seven, but she was worried about little brother and specially came to take a look. Damn it. Ao Yu shouted. He used his dragon claws to point at Ao Ying, Jing-ching and Ao Xian in disbelief. He said, I thought I was smart and my plan was unparalleled in the West Sea. But after so many calculations, I only realized now that I am the stupid one. I am the prey of others. You are really stupid. Ao Ying laughed heartily. For an ambush like the Lingbo Reef, if it wasn't for this king's intention, who would really come to this dangerous reef for no reason to patrol? If I didn't care about my dragon oath, why would I let you make the first move? Now that this king's dragon vow hasn't been broken and your life is gone, this king is the biggest winner. Ao Yu felt his dragon body getting colder and colder. He knew that he was about to die, but he was really unwilling. He stared at Ao Xian and said word by word, Big sister, are you really so heartless? Ao Yu, don't blame big sister. Ao Xian said in a low voice. The West Sea is no longer a paradise. All the powers that have the strength to compete have come. I am the princess of the West Sea Dragon Palace. I also have the qualifications. Furthermore, didn't you make a move on third brother first? Ao Ying. Ao Yu did not wait for Ao Xian to finish speaking as he laughed out loud. He looked at the dragon breaking all that had already entered his dragon body and said, Don't say that I'm an idiot. Aren't you an idiot too? Jing-ching immediately moved away from Ao Ying and laughed. Ao Yu, you're about to die. Don't try to sow discord between us. Don't worry, big brother-in-law. Ao Ying laughed and pulled out the dragon breaking all from his body. He said, How can I not believe big brother-in-law? However, just as his dragon claw landed on the dragon-breaking awl, boom. The dragon-breaking awl emitted a blinding light. The entire dragon-breaking awl suddenly expanded and a sharp light appeared from the dragon-breaking awl. It pierced into Ao Ying's dragon body like a hot knife through butter. The dragon-breaking awl was so powerful that it actually pushed Ao Ying's huge dragon body down 1,000 feet and nailed him onto a huge rock. Roar. Ao Ying's dragon body was extremely convulsing as he shook with all his might. His roar was also filled with confusion. How did this become the real dragon-breaking awl? Third brother? Ao Xian's faint voice sounded from afar. You wanted to find a replica of the dragon-breaking awl to fool Ao Yu. However, there is no such replica in this world. Thus, Big Sister had no choice but to give you a real dragon-breaking awl. Because St. Zhang's dragon-breaking awl is a pair of male and female. Ha 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 ha. Ao Yu laughed until tears flowed down his face. Although he was exhaling more than he was inhaling, he still forced himself to shout. Ao Ying, do you still remember what your dragon oath was? If you attack your own brother, you will be nailed to death on the West Sea's rock. Haha, the heavens are fair. Ao Ying, you asked me just now. Is it time for me to ask you now? Do you know what it means to lift a rock and smash it on your own feet? Do you know what it means to invite a wolf into the house? Do you know what it means to? Unfortunately, as he spoke, Ao Yu had already collapsed and no longer made a sound. Ao Yu was dead and Ao Ying also stopped struggling. This was because the dragon-breaking awl had nailed him onto the rock. His life was flowing away like the seawater being washed away by the Lingbo reef. He lifted his dragon head helplessly and said weakly, Big Sister, you. However, other than these few words he could not say anything else. This ambush on the Lingbo reef was his plan. He had bet everything on it. However, he did not expect that he would still lose. Third brother. You must remember in your next life. Don't trust any dragon. Ao Xian said calmly, furthermore, any oath. When the price is high enough, it will become poison. You have made a lot of promises to Big Sister, but are these promises comparable to the Dragon Emperor of the West Sea Dragon Palace? Alright, I have nothing to say. Ao Ying lifted his head with difficulty. At this moment, within the dragon array, the dragons and sea tribes of the Saint River had already stepped out. These dragons and sea tribes raised their butcher's knives and madly attacked the West Sea tribes. I think, Ao Ying continued, it won't be long before the news of me and second brother killing each other reaches the West Sea Dragon Palace. Big Sister and brother-in-law will be able to rightfully return to the West Sea. How could you possibly kill each other? Jing Qing smiled and said, the 9 princes of the West Sea are very close to each other. When you patrol the West Sea, you will naturally fall into the ambush of the dragons of the Dongtian River. Ah, this framing. You are really good at it. Ao Ying could not help but laugh. That Jiang Hong of the Dongtian River wanted to get her hands on the West Sea. Now, even if she wants to clear her name. Before Ao Yu could finish his sentence. Roar. Another dragon's roar came from the sky far away. Then a powerful Yuan Shen swept across the clouds. At the same time, a cold voice sounded, he who said that I can't clear my name? Jiang Hong? Ao Xian, who had been calm all this time, suddenly had a huge change in expression. She exclaimed in a daze. We meet again, Princess Ao. Jiang Hong looked at Ao Xian's panic with interest and smiled slightly. Chapter 4696. The 5-colored flood dragon Jing Qing was very confused. He shouted in surprise, why are you here? Before I set up the array, I had already searched the entire sea region. Could it be that you have been following us all along? You think you can find me with your 7th grade elemental power? Jiang Hong snorted in disdain. Besides, I was just flying past the Lingbo reef and happened to see your dirty business. Otherwise, who would care about you little loaches? Don't you think so, Princess Ao? Damn it. Ao Xian cursed in her heart, but she did not dare to show her anger on her face. She smiled and said, Jiang Hong, we came all the way to the West Sea. We know very well why. Since you have seen it, I will not hide it from you. What do you want from the Dongtian River? Tell us. We, the Saint Jiang, are willing to make a deal with you. The deal is easy. Jiang Hong smiled and waved her dragon claws. However, before the deal, I would like to ask Princess Ao. Between you and me, who is the little loach? Who is only fit to swim in the stinky river? Ao Xian clenched her teeth and did not say anything. She knew very well that she had insulted Jiang Hong with those words in the past. Now Jiang Hong had returned it to her. How could she answer? Senior Jiang. Ao Xian whispered pitifully. You are already an 8th grade elemental power dragon. Why do you have to lower yourself to my level? Back then I was just blinded by lard. That's why. Say it. Between you and me, who is the little loach that swims in the stinky river? Jiang Hong was not moved at all. Ao Xian glanced at Jing Qing and then at Ao Ying, who was on the verge of death but still forced herself to watch the show. She gritted her teeth and answered, Of course it is me. Ao Xian, you can't even finish your sentence? Why can't I understand what you are saying? Jiang Hong asked Ao Xian as she recalled the scene of her being humiliated that day. Yes, senior. Junior Ao Xian is that little loach that is only fit to swim in the smelly sewers. Ao Xian clearly remembered Jiang Hong's reply that day. She also replied word by word. At least you can see your true colors clearly. Not bad, not bad. You will have a bright future. Jiang Hong smiled and said, However, before we discuss your future, I want to ask again. What happened on the Liao River of the hidden immortal continent? Oh. Leaked the whereabouts of the heavenly river lineage to the North Sea Dragon Palace? This. When Ao Xian heard this, her expression changed drastically. She did not hesitate to point at Ao Ying and said, Senior Jiang, that was Ao Ying's doing. Junior has already married into Sage Jiang. How could I have information about Liao Jiang of hidden immortal continent? Ao Ying was furious. Just as he was about to retort, a large amount of dragon blood seeped out of the dragon, breaking all. Ao Ying howled a few times and died. Haha, this is called dead men tell no tales. Jiang Hong laughed loudly and said. Ao Xian's expression calmed down and she smiled. Senior is wise, this matter is. This was done by you, Sage Jiangji. Unfortunately, before Ao Xian could finish, another thunderous dragon roar was heard. Ao Zhan descended from the sky from another direction. Oh, Ao Zhan? Jing Qing looked as if he had seen a ghost. His dragon body shook. You. Why are you here too? Why can't I be here? Ao Zhan smiled. If I didn't come, how could I see what Sage Jiangji and his dragon husband did? How could I see Princess Ao killing her 2 younger brothers in order to seize the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace? If I didn't come, how could I expose Princess Ao's secret to the North Sea Dragon Palace? What evidence do you have? Ao Xian gritted her teeth and said again. Ao Zhan raised his right claw and waved it. I don't need any evidence. I just need to prove that I was the dragon guard of the East Sea. Damn it. Ao Xian cursed in a low voice. She didn't know how to refute because she knew clearly that the dragon guards of the East Sea Dragon Palace were responsible for the information of the East Sea Dragon Palace and the safety of the princes. He could easily find out what she did back then. Boom. Jiang Hong stretched out his dragon claw, and in a loud roar, a golden dragon claw shadow that was hundreds of feet long broke through the air. It leaped across the few miles of space and grabbed Ao Xian's dragon body. Ao Xian naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. She hurriedly swung her dragon tail and pointed at the dragon, breaking all on Ao Yu's body at the same time, and pounced on Jiang Hong. PFFF. Jiang Hong's dragon claws tore apart the dragon formation and landed on Ao Xian's violent dragon tail. 2 muffled sounds rang out. Ow ow. What followed was Ao Xian's blood-curdling screams. Jiang Hong's dragon claws dug deeply into Ao Xian's dragon tail, tearing apart the dragon's scales. That dragon tail, which was indestructible to ordinary humans, was even torn apart by Jiang Hong's claws. Dragon breaking all? It's just a piece of scrap metal in your hands. Seeing the dragon breaking through the air, Jiang Hong sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a dragon breath, which blocked the dragon breaking all a few miles away. No matter how hard the dragon breaking all struggled, it couldn't move forward even half an inch. I'll fight you to the death. Jing Qing roared and pounced on Ao Zhan crazily. Ao Zhan didn't dare to be as casual as Jiang Hong. He roared and urged his dragon body to meet Jing Qing's attack head-on. For a moment, the originally cold and cheerless Lingbo Reef once again flared up. Waves of water soared into the sky like pillars, and the airwaves tore apart the clouds in the sky. The battle between the 2 enormous dragons even smashed many reefs into pieces. Although Ao Zhan had gained a lot of benefits, he had only cultivated for a short period of time. He was already at a disadvantage in the time it took to eat a meal. Not only was his dragon body torn apart, even his dragon head was damaged a little. However, Jiang Hong, who had already injured Ao Xian, wasn't in a hurry to help. She just watched indifferently. Senior Jiang. Ao Xian understood that although there were many dragons and sea tribes on the Lingbo Reef, only Jiang Hong could control the situation. She hurriedly whispered, "You are the leader of the Heavenly Paradise River. If you spare this junior, I, Senior Jiang, will follow your lead. Moreover, this junior will definitely hand over the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Of course, if you are willing, this junior can help you kill Ao Zhan. Take his forces." Jiang Hong snorted and said, "Why do I need you to interfere with what I want to do?" "Hee, Senior, this junior knows your difficulties." Ao Xian chuckled and said, "You are a disciple of the Fortune Gate, and this Ao Zhan is familiar with Dao Master Xiao. If I'm not mistaken, Dao Master Xiao has already promised the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace to Ao Zhan. Although Ao Zhan has the bloodline of the Hui tribe's patriarch, his strength is still weak. How can he compare to your great talent and strategy? If it's inconvenient for you to make a move, this junior can do it for you. Moreover, today is a good opportunity." Jiang Hong's expression changed slightly when she heard what Ao Xian said. She actually raised her dragon claw. When Ao Xian saw this, she immediately knew that she had hit Jiang Hong's sore spot. She wanted to add more oil to the fire. Unfortunately, before she could say another word, Jiang Hong let out a sinister laugh. With a boom, her dragon claw smashed onto Ao Xian's dragon head, knocking Ao Xian onto the reef. She then said, "Ao Xian, if I want to do something, I will naturally do it. I don't need you to teach me." Roar. Jiang Hong swung her dragon tail. Boom. Jing Qing, who was about to attack Ao Zhan again, was sent flying. His dragon body was badly mutilated. Kill. Jiang Hong roared and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The dragon breath rushed into the sky and turned into the image of a dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Kill. From the void thousands of miles away, a dozen dragons from the Heavenly Abode River tore through the air and pounced on Lingbo Reef. The leading dragon roared and shouted, "Reporting to Princess, the Heavenly Abode River has just received orders and is rushing here." Jiang Hong nodded coldly and said, "There's no need to wait for them. You can all." Cough cough. Before Jiang Hong could finish speaking, a familiar coughing sound rang in her ears. Master? When Jiang Hong heard the cough, her face was filled with joy. However, a moment later, her eyes flashed with panic. When she raised her head to look at the source of the sound, she saw a streak of light flying through the night sky like a shooting star. The holy heavenly horse spread its wings, carrying the beautiful Princess Zixia and the charming Xiao Hua as it descended. The grand ascension stage aura rushed down from the sky like a tsunami. Not to mention the sea tribes, even the hundreds of dragons trembled and fell to the ground uncontrollably. No one dared to move. Disciple greets master. Jiang Hong's face was filled with respect. She transformed into her human form and knelt in mid-air. "We greet sect master." Although the Grotto Heaven River Dragon tribe hadn't returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range, they had already received news from the Fortune Gate. They transformed into their human forms and knelt in mid-air to greet Ao Zhan. Ao Zhan was injured, but he grimaced in pain and bowed. Junior greets Master Long. The West Sea Dragon tribe, the Sage River Dragon tribe, and the sea tribes were all trembling in fear, not daring to raise their voices. Ao Xian and Jing Qing's faces were pale as they looked at each other. The two dragons looked at each other and knelt down in the air, shouting, "Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao." The Pegasus flying carriage stopped in the sky. Xiao Hua withdrew his aura and brought Princess Zixia down. His gaze swept across the crowd of dragons and finally landed on Jiang Hong and Ao Zhan. He waved his sleeves and said, "Get up." "Yes, master." Jiang Hong got up and looked at Princess Zixia. She bowed respectfully again and said, "Ninth Princess." Chapter 4697. No need to be so courteous. Princess Zixia saw that Jiang Hong's greeting was neither too far nor too close, and she could see Jiang Hong's cautiousness and meticulousness. Ao Zhan also flew over, smiling as he greeted, "This one greets Princess Zixia." "You're too polite." Princess Zixia smiled and nodded. "Why did Master suddenly come to the West Sea?" Before Xiao Hua could speak, Jiang Hong hurriedly asked. This disciple received Lu Yi's order and hurriedly led the Holy Paradise River's subordinates to the West Sea. Moreover, this disciple heard that our Fortune Gate's first batch of disciples were only close to the West Sea's border, and you weren't there. "Oh, this disciple understands. Is Master looking for a place for our Fortune Gate to settle down?" To be honest with Master, this disciple already has a plan in mind, and this disciple is heading there to investigate. If Master is free, this disciple can go with this disciple to take a look. Seeing Jiang Hong speaking one sentence after another, it is obvious that she is somewhat guilty. Xiao Hua wants to berate her a few words, but thinking of what he saw just now and the sound transmission between Jiang Hong and Ao Xian, Jiang Hong indeed did not do anything wrong. The reason why Jiang Hong felt guilty was because she understood that Xiao Hua didn't intend to make him the master of the West Sea. Moreover, Jiang Hong also faintly knew that Xiao Hua wanted the little white dragon to be the master of the West Sea. Since Xiao Hua had made such a decision, Jiang Hong rashly coming to the West Sea was clearly looking down on Xiao Hua's authority and not listening to his orders. Looking at Jiang Hong and the Holy Paradise River's dragon tribe, Xiao Hua had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Everything proved that Jiang Hong was an excellent dragon tribe leader. She had the means and the ability to unify the West Sea, and was qualified to sit on the West Sea Dragon Palace's dragon throne. Unfortunately, Jiang Hong was a female dragon. She did not have the West Sea Fire Dragon soul, nor did she have the West Sea Dragon throne. She could only rely on the Fortune Gate and Xiao Hua. Looking at Xiao Bai, Xiao Hua didn't know if Xiao Bai had the ability to lead the West Sea's dragon tribe. However, Xiao Bai had the Fire Dragon's soul, and now he had the West Sea Dragon throne. Most importantly, Xiao Bai had the seven-colored sea god seashell and Xiao Hua's approval. With this comparison, Xiao Hua felt a little regretful. Of course, he had to give the West Sea Dragon throne to the little white dragon. Because the little white dragon might not be a good leader, just like how he might not be a good Fortune Gate chief. Alas, this is the fate of the heavenly Tao. Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He looked at the restless Jiang Hong and said, Master came to the West Sea for another matter. The matter of our Fortune Gate's foundation will be decided by you and Lu Yi. He is now in charge of the Fortune Gate's affairs. If you have any ideas, you can discuss them with him. Also, if there's anything your clan needs, feel free to inform Lu Yi. Seeing Xiao Hua's amiable tone, no different from before, Jiang Hong heaved a long sigh of relief. However, before she could speak, a fierce expression flashed in Xiao Hua's eyes, and he swept the members of the dragon clan with his gaze before he said coldly, I've seen everything that all of you have done. I'm also aware of how Ao Ing and Ao Yu died. Jiang Hong, you've done well. You didn't fall for Ao Xian's bewitchment. This old man is relieved. Master. Jiang Hong was so frightened that she broke out in cold sweat. She hurriedly knelt down and said, Disciple has always engraved Master's teachings in her heart. Although Disciple has some selfish thoughts, Disciple knows what to do when it comes to matters of principle. And get up. Xiao Hua nodded. How do you plan to deal with the Sage River Dragon clan? Kill. Jiang Hong said without hiding anything, the Sage River Dragon clan belongs to the Western Paradise world. They actually dared to touch the West Sea. Jiang Hong. Jing Qing hurriedly shouted, Your Paradise River belongs to the hidden immortal mainland. How dare you touch the West Sea? Ao Xian's expression changed when she heard that. She quickly looked at Xiao Hua. As expected, Xiao Hua smiled leisurely and said, Because our Fortune Gate wants to expand in the West Sea in the future, the Paradise River Dragon clan came to the West Sea. Jiang Hong, these two members of the Dragon clan. And the Sage River Dragon clan, there's no need to kill them. Take them to the West Sea Dragon Palace. I'm going to meet the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island. The situation in the West Sea is so chaotic. The two princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace were killed by the first princess. If our Fortune Gate doesn't stay in the West Sea Dragon Palace, wouldn't the West Sea Dragon Palace fall into chaos? Jiang Hong was overjoyed when she heard that. She understood that the West Sea Dragon Palace was controlled by the Dragon Island and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. No one could interfere. The Fortune Gate happened to see the internal strife in the West Sea Dragon Palace. This was the perfect opportunity and reason to insert the Fortune Gate's forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In that case, it was better for Ao Xian and Jing Qing to be alive. He could even use these two members of the Dragon clan to extend his hand into the Sage River Dragon clan. Yes, Master. Jiang Hong replied. On the distant sea, there were already waves rising to the sky. It should be the Paradise River Dragon clan coming over. Ao Xian and Jing Qing heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. Although they didn't know whether they would live or die in the West Sea Dragon Palace, at least they didn't have to die for now. 1-1. At this time, within 1,000 li, there was another rumbling sound. Countless mayfly insects flew out from the void as if they had smelled something fishy. These mayfly insects were of different sizes, and the biggest one was more than 100 zhang tall. "Do you see that?" Xiao Hua sneered, and his voice rumbled like thunder. "This is the biggest enemy our 3 continents and 3 rivers and 4 seas are facing. These strange insects are called mayflies, and they have the power to destroy the world." All of us venerables gathered at the Nacre Lake to discuss how to exterminate these strange insects. However, even our gathering was disrupted by these mayfly insects. "You people don't know self-respect, you don't know righteousness, and you're still looking for small benefits. What's the meaning of this?" "Master," Jiang Hong hurriedly called out, "Disciple has long heard about the power of these mayfly insects. Seeing them today, they are indeed powerful. Should we avoid them or exterminate them?" "Exterminate them," Xiao Hua said without hesitation. "These mayfly insects not only devour dragons with cultivation, but also ordinary members of the sea. If you don't exterminate them, they will raise the West Sea to the ground. Everyone, exterminate these mayfly insects." Jiang Hong didn't say anything else after hearing that. She waved her dragon claws, and while commanding the dragons of the heavenly abode, she rushed into the swarm of mayfly insects. "Saints of the Jiang clan, West Sea Dragon Palace, attack as well," Xiao Hua ordered indifferently. "Yes, Junior understands." Ao Xian and Jing Qing knew that this was a good opportunity to redeem themselves. After receiving the order, they immediately commanded the saints of the Jiang clan to rush into the swarm of mayfly insects. Even with Xiao Hua and the other Taoist experts, the battle between the heavenly abode and the saints of the heavenly abode and the mayfly insects lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing the last mayfly insect explode under Xiao Hua's punch, Jiang Hong and the other dragons of the heavenly abode could finally relax. Looking at the injuries all over her body, Jiang Hong smiled bitterly. She was no longer a member of the dragon clan who had a clear understanding of her own body. In this world, there were very few members of the demon clan who had a tougher body than the dragon clan. However, this kind of dragon clan body was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the strange insect's hind legs. Every single scar on her body caused Jiang Hong to feel a lingering fear. Ever since she achieved great success in her cultivation, Jiang Hong had never suffered such heavy injuries. And today, if Xiao Hua wasn't here, that several 100 feet long strange insect could really exterminate all the dragon clan members. The mayfly insects lived up to its name. Xiao Hua released the netherworld origin power and collected the souls of the dead dragons and sea clans. Then, he said indifferently, "This old man hopes that today's battle will let you see the situation of the entire war clearly. This is the moment of life and death for our 3 continents. The importance of working together is far more important than the scheming between each other. Do you think the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace is easy to sit on? If you can't destroy the mayfly insects and bring peace to the West Sea, even if you sit on the dragon throne, you will still be overthrown by the other dragons." "Yes, this Junior understands." Ao Xian and the others replied in unison. "Let's go to the West Sea Dragon Palace," Xiao Hua said with a wave of his hand. Naturally, going to the West Sea Dragon Palace wasn't just a day. Before Xiao Hua and the others could get close, the Yaksha of the West Sea Dragon Palace had already seen the mighty heavenly abode river clan. The Yaksha turned pale with fright and hurriedly dived into the sea to report. Xiao Hua had already seen it. He smiled and ordered the disciples of the Jiang Hong sect to report. Boom boom boom. After a few moments, pillars of light shot into the sky and tore apart the dark clouds. Amidst the sounds of string instruments, several dragons flew out on the waves. The leading dragon's body was yellow. After seeing Xiao Hua, he hurriedly transformed into human form. An old dragon with a bitter face and gray hair appeared. The old dragon bowed and said, "Junior Ao Su of the Gue clan greets Dragon Master Xiao." "Ao Su?" Xiao Hua frowned. He looked up and down at this dragon with the strength of the lower 9th grade and asked curiously, "You're named after the earthly branch? I'm afraid you're also an elder of the Dragon Palace?" "Good, Dragon Master knows." Ao Su said with a smile, "This junior is not an elder of the Dragon Palace, but a second elder of the Dragon Palace." After saying that, seeing Xiao Hua's confusion, he explained, "The 10 elders of the Dragon Palace are the heads of the 10 clans of the Dragon Island. They are named after the 10 heavenly stems. The 12 second elders of the Dragon Palace are named after the 12 earthly branches. They are responsible for the affairs of the Dragon Palace and report to the 10 elders of the Dragon Palace. Under the second elder, there are 60 deacons who are responsible for the miscellaneous matters of the Dragon Palace. They are named after the combination of the heavenly stems and earthly branches. The disappearance of the West Sea Dragon King and Dragon Throne is very important. The ninth elder of the Dragon Palace can't leave the Dragon Island for a long time, so he sent me to the West Sea Dragon Palace to represent the Dragon Island to assist the 3 Sea Dragon Kings and deal with the aftermath. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua understood and said with a smile, although this Xiao is the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, I still don't know much about the Dragon Island. Please forgive me. Dragon Master will go to the Dragon Island more in the future. You'll naturally understand. Ao Su said with a smile. Junior Ao Xiang of the East Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Beside Ao Su, a tall and valiant dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Chapter 4698. I just saw your father's martial prowess at the Jade Pool meeting, and now I see your martial prowess again. I'm really surprised. Why does the heavens favor your East Sea Dragon Palace? Each generation is stronger than the previous. Xiao Hua smiled and helped Ao Xiang up, praising him. Ao Xiang was very humble. He smiled and said, Senior, you flatter me. How can I compare to my father's political and martial prowess? After Ao Xiang saw Xiao Hua, a fat dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Junior Ao Qian from the West Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Looking at this dragon with a pair of fish eyes, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He nodded and said, This old man hasn't seen you before, but just now in front of Lingbo Reef, I heard your name. Who did Dragon Master hear about me in front of the Lingbo Reef? Ao Qian's face was full of joy, as if it was an honor for Xiao Hua to hear his name. He hurriedly asked. There are a lot of dragons talking about you. Xiao Hua said meaningfully, Ao Yu, Ao Ing, Ao Xian and Jing Qing. When Xiao Hua mentioned Ao Yu and Ao Ing, Ao Su and Ao Xiang did not think much of it. But when Xiao Hua called out the name of the Saint River Dragon race, the two dragons turned pale with fright. They looked at each other as if they had thought of something. Looking at Ao Qian again, his face was actually blurred. He asked curiously, What? Big sister actually returned to the West Sea? Why didn't she come to the West Sea Dragon Palace? Why did she go to the Lingbo Reef? Xiao Hua didn't know whether Ao Qian was really stupid or pretending to be stupid, but he had a deep impression of the dragon's cunning. He only nodded at Ao Su and said, Let's talk about it after we enter the Dragon Palace. Yes, Dragon Master, please. Ao Su didn't dare to neglect. He hurriedly bowed and asked Xiao Hua to go first. At this time, Princess Zixia, accompanied by Jiang Hong, walked out from the group of dragons behind. When Ao Su saw, he thought for a while and also raised his hand with Ao Xiang and Ao Qian. Princess Zixia understood that her status with Xiao Hua was not fixed. If she was the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace, the 2nd elder of the Dragon Island might not be so polite. Ao Su raised his hand was also because of Xiao Hua's face, so she didn't dare to be disrespectful. She smiled gracefully and raised her hand to return the greeting. Ao Su completed his etiquette and ignored Princess Zixia. He hurriedly accompanied Xiao Hua into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In his early years, Xiao Hua had already walked through the West Sea Dragon Palace. However, at that time, his eyes were filled with half of the treasures in the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury. He didn't look at the Dragon Palace at all, nor did he stay in the main hall for long. Today, as soon as he stepped into the main hall, he saw that the hall was overflowing with treasure light. It was oppressively magnificent, even more dazzling than the South Sea Dragon Palace. Master Long, please take a seat. Ao Su respectfully gestured. Xiao Hua wanted to decline, but after thinking for a moment, he raised his hand and pushed the door above his head. Boom. A soaring dragon aura mixed with red light forced its way to the top of the hall. The Dragon Master's crimson dragon crown appeared above Xiao Hua's head. Seeing Xiao Hua take out the scarlet dragon crown, Ao Su was delighted. After all, the main seat in the main hall of the West Ocean Dragon Palace was the symbol of the dragon race's commander. It was inevitable that it would be inappropriate for a Dao sect disciple to sit on it. However, aside from the main seat, where else could Xiao Hua sit in the main hall? Now that Xiao Hua was wearing the scarlet dragon crown, even the true ruler of the West Sea would have to bow and salute him. Xiao Hua's arrival not only preserved the dignity of the human race's grand ascension stage, but also preserved the might of the dragon race. No one would have any doubts about Xiao Hua's arrival. Xiao Hua sat down. Ao Su, Ao Xiang, and Ao Qian also accompanied him at the side. The dragon generals and officials of the West Sea Dragon Palace also followed the prescribed order and stood in attendance. In the end, Princess Zixia, Jiang Hong and Ao Zhan entered again. Princess Zixia sat in a guest seat in a corner of the hall, accompanied by 2 members of the dragon clan. I didn't know that Master Long had come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, so I didn't greet you. Please forgive me, Master Long. Ao Su said politely. May I ask why Master Long has come today? Xiao Hua smiled and replied politely, I had to go to Dragon Island to pay a visit to the Grand Elder, but I didn't know the way to Dragon Island, so I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace to disturb you. I didn't ask my disciples to notify you in advance. Upon hearing that Xiao Hua wanted to go to Dragon Island, both Ao Su and Ao Xiang heaved a long sigh of relief. Unfortunately, before they had a chance to speak, Xiao Hua continued, however, aside from this, I have another important matter to attend to, and I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace specifically. Ao Su's heart tightened, and he hurriedly smiled. May I ask if Master Long has anything to do with Wave Reef? Yes, that is indeed the case. Xiao Hua nodded and didn't explain any further. He raised his head and said, Jiang Hong, escort Ao Xian and Jing Qing to the main hall, and bring Ao Ying and Ao Yu's corpses as well. What? Upon hearing this, Ao Qian flew up from the jade pillar he was sitting on and exclaimed, How could second brother and third brother? I only sent third brother to patrol Wave Reef. Second brother he didn't even leave the West Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Su's face was gloomy, and his eyes flashed with anger. He glared at Ao Xiang fiercely. It was clearly the East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince's idea to send the 4 princes out to patrol. He was kept in the dark. Ao Xiang's expression changed slightly, but he instantly calmed down. He was the one who came up with the idea, and Ao Qian was the one who made the decision. What did it have to do with him if something happened? Jiang Hong got up and flew out of the hall. Not long after, not only did she escort Ao Xian and Jing Qing, but she also brought Ao Ying and Ao Yu's corpses to the main hall. She also brought the heavily injured Ao Shun, Ao Bai, and the rest of the West Sea Dragon clan to the main hall. Big sister you. Ao Qian flew above the main hall and looked at Ao Xian in exasperation. He had a pained look on his face. Then he landed beside the corpses of Ao Ying and Ao Yu. He hugged the corpses of the 2 giant dragons and cried, Second brother, third brother, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have sent you out to patrol. At this point he suddenly realized something and hurriedly said to the outside of the hall, Quick, quick, send 100,000 members of the Sea clan to welcome 4th brother, 6th brother, and 7th brother. Don't let anything happen to them. Yes, Your Highness, your subordinate has received the order. Outside the palace door, a dragon general immediately responded and urged his dragon body to fly out. Seeing that the dragon general had left, Ao Qian stood at the entrance of the main hall and looked outside for a long time, like a parent waiting for their child to return. Xiao Hua sat on a huge jade chair and looked on indifferently. Although his figure didn't match the jade chair, the aura of the crimson dragon crown was like a mountain weighing down on the hearts of all the dragons, and no one dared to look directly at this human grand ascension stage being. First Crown Prince. Ao Su waited for a moment before reminding, if I'm not mistaken, the 3 crown princes should be on their way back from their patrol. The West Sea is the foundation of the West Sea Dragon Palace, and since they're the crown princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace, they should be responsible for patrolling. Don't give up on eating just because of some other mishap. Yes, Dragon Envoy, you're right. Ao Qian replied in a low voice before silently turning around and saying, My West Sea Dragon Palace was very lively before. Father was handling government affairs on the dragon throne, and the 9 of us were playing around in the main hall. Now that I've lost 2 of my brothers, I'm a little flustered. At this point Ao Qian bowed to Xiao Hua and said, Now that Dragon Master Xiao has come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, I'll have to ask Dragon Master Xiao to make the decision. I'm a little afraid to face reality. I'm an outsider, and it's not good for me to interfere too much in the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua replied with a smile, That day the Dragon King of the East Sea Ao Qian specially reminded me. Therefore this matter should be presided over by Ao Su, Dragon Envoy Ao. Alright. Ao Su thought for a moment, raised his head to look at Ao Xiang and replied, I'll preside over this matter with the East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince. I'll listen to Dragon Envoy. Ao Xiang didn't dare to refuse and nodded in agreement. Then Ao Su looked around and waved his hand to signal for most of the dragon generals and sea race to leave, leaving only a few generals behind. Then he ordered Ao Shun and Ao Bai to explain the situation. Ao Shun and Ao Bai naturally didn't dare to hide anything, and told him everything about the Lingbo Reef. Then Ao Yu's subordinates also told him about their own experiences. Finally Ao Su's face darkened. He looked at Ao Xian, suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in a deep voice, Ao Xian, what they said just now is the truth. Ao Xian said in a low voice, that's right. Ao Su sighed and said, Sai, tell me how you discussed, how you schemed. Tell me everything in detail. Ao Xian had no choice at this time. She told him all the details of how she discussed with Ao Ying and how to kill Ao Yu. As for the truth, there was no proof. In the end, Ao Xian argued, I actually didn't have any other ideas, but because I couldn't stand Ao Ying's bewitchment, I did this. Killing Ao Ying was also Ao Ying's own bewitchment? Ao Su sneered, looked at Jing Qing and asked, Jing Qing, it seems that St. Jiang has a big plan. If Dong Tian River can come to the West Sea, why can't St. Jiang? Jing Qing sneered, as far as I know, the Redland River Dragon tribe has come to the West Sea a long time ago. Ao Su wanted Jing Qing to confess, but looking at him he was afraid that he wouldn't tell the truth. Ao Su thought for a moment and said, I can't make a decision on this matter, so I'll put you in the prison of the West Sea Dragon Palace first. I'll report the details to Dragon Island, and Ao Xiang will report to the East Sea Dragon Palace. We'll talk about it when there's news. After that, Ao Su looked at Xiao Hua respectfully and asked, Dragon Master, what do you think of this? Of course. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Dragon Master, you're fair. I'm relieved. That's good. Ao Su replied, this junior will order people to prepare the teleportation channel to Dragon Island. This junior has a duty and cannot accompany Master Long to Dragon Island. This matter is just right. Master Long, please pass on this junior's opinion and let the elders decide. Chapter 4699. Don't be impatient, don't be impatient. Xiao Hua smiled faintly and waved his hand saying, regarding this matter, this old man has another opinion, listen to me first. O Dragon Teacher Xiao, please speak. Ao Su was stunned for a second. Then his gaze swept over Jiang Hong as if he had already understood something. During the Jade Lake Conference, the various forces venerables have already decided that our Dao Gate will set up a defense against the world-destroying strange insects, preventing them from harassing the West Sea, and preventing them from attacking the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua said, on that day the Dragon Hall's second elder also had the intention to invite this old man to oversee the West Sea Dragon Palace. But this old man is a Dao Gate cultivator, how can I oversee the Dragon Palace? Therefore, before the second elder could say anything, this old man had already refused. Previously, this old man had thought that our Fortune Gate's disciples only needed to eliminate the strange insects at the West Sea's border, and did not need to care about the West Sea Dragon Palace's matters, avoiding any disputes with the West Sea Dragon Palace's sea tribes. However, through this matter, this old man discovered that the West Sea Dragon Palace is not stable because the Dragon Palace's lord is not present, and various forces are trying to gain benefits in the West Sea. Just look at Ao Xian, who has already married into the St. River's Dragon tribe, but she actually led a foreign force to kill her two brothers. That Thousand Beast Sacred Grounds Crimson Ground River Dragon tribe has also extended their hands to the Dragon Palace. Dragon Envoy Ao Xiang, such a chaotic West Sea Dragon Palace has already become an unstable rear. How can our Fortune Gate's disciples be at ease to resist the strange insects? Who can guarantee that when our Fortune Gate's disciples are fighting a bloody battle, some unknown force will not stab us in the back? Who could guarantee that the already murky waters of the West Sea wouldn't become even more murky and blood wouldn't seep in? And if they can't, then this old man feels that our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our disciples. Our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our Fortune Gate's rear, and our Fortune Gate should be responsible for the West Sea's peace and stability. Ao Su thoughtfully looked at Ao Xiang and asked, Ao Xiang, can you guarantee this? Ao Xiang was tongue-tied, how could he dare to guarantee this? Facing Ao Ying and Ao Yu who were killed because of their schemes, even if the Lord of the East Sea was here he could not guarantee, right? Dragon Teacher, what do you mean? Ao Su asked. My Fortune Gate wants to send a disciple to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua said indifferently, this disciple will not comment on any of the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace, nor will he interfere with any of the internal affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace. But he has the right to know everything that happens in the West Sea Dragon Palace, and he has the right to pass on any information that is harmful to our Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate's disciples are humans after all, isn't it inappropriate for them to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace? Ao Su pondered for a moment and intentionally sent the topic into Xiao Hua's hands. He said, Master Xiao, please understand. Rest assured, Dragon Envoy Ao. Xiao Hua laughed. There are also members of the Dragon clan among my Fortune Gate's disciples. As he said, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Jiang Hong, you come over. Yes, master. Jiang Hong was overjoyed. She hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Currently, all matters related to my Fortune Gate are being handled by this old man's disciple, Lu Yi. Xiao Hua said to Ao Su. And Jiang Hong is Lu Yi's wife. She is a member of the Dragon clan, and before marrying into my Fortune Gate, she was the little princess of the Holy Paradise River. This old man has decided that she will represent my Fortune Gate to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. And Ao Su nodded slightly and smiled. This junior has long heard that the Holy Paradise River's Dragon clan has produced an outstanding commander, but I didn't expect this Dragon clan member to have already married into the Fortune Gate. Master Zhao's arrangement is wonderful. Jiang Hong is a member of the Dragon clan, and she is also the wife of the Fortune Gate's sect chief's disciple. This junior has no objections. However, this junior cannot make the decision on this matter. I need to send a message to the Dragon Island, and senior can go to the Dragon Island to explain everything. As for the East Sea Dragon Palace, Crown Prince needs to send a message. Yes, this junior will report to Royal Father. Ao Xiang hurriedly stood up and answered, but Royal Father does not. Jiang Hong glanced at Xiao Hua and smiled faintly. She said to Ao Xiang, I'm afraid Crown Prince has misheard. My sect chief has decided to let me guard the West Sea Dragon Palace on behalf of the Fortune Gate. This is my Fortune Gate's decision. You only need to send a message. As for how the East Sea Dragon King will respond, that is your East Sea Dragon Palace's matter, and has nothing to do with my Fortune Gate. AI, as expected of the Dragon clan with the ambition to rule the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua sighed. Jiang Hong's words were ingenious and dignified. If Xiao Hua had said these words, it would be considered bullying the weak, but if Jiang Hong said these words, not only would it raise the Fortune Gate's prestige, it would also establish Jiang Hong's foundation in the West Sea Dragon Palace. That's right, this old man has the same intention. Xiao Hua said to Ao Su, Is the transmission array to the Dragon Island ready? This old man's matter is 100 times more important than the West Sea Dragon Palace's internal strife. It cannot be delayed. Ao Su was very happy to see Xiao Hua inserting his forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace without shedding a drop of blood, because the Dragon Island had originally planned to let Xiao Hua restrain the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Moreover, he also understood that even if the East Sea Dragon Palace's lord received this news, not to mention that what was done could not be undone, even if Xiao Hua waited for his decision, Ao Su would have to consider the consequences of not letting Jiang Hong enter the West Sea Dragon Palace. Because the Fortune Gate's disciples could find an excuse at any time, saying that the West Sea Dragon Palace's situation would affect their safety. At that time, if the Fortune Gate forced their way into the West Sea Dragon Palace, it would not only be the West Sea Dragon Palace that would lose face, but also the East Sea Dragon Palace's reputation. Therefore, Ao Su believed that the East Sea Dragon Palace would make a wise choice and accept the fact that Jiang Hong was overseeing the West Sea Dragon Palace. Therefore, Ao Su hurriedly smiled and said, Dragon Teacher Xiao, please wait a moment, the transmission array to the Dragon Island is not that easy to set up. On one hand, the transmission array needs to be activated, and on the other hand, we need to obtain the Dragon Island's approval through a transmission array. So troublesome. Xiao Hua frowned and grumbled in displeasure. This matter involves my Dragon Island's defense, so I ask for Dragon Teacher Zhao's forgiveness. Ao Su carefully explained. At this time, Xiao Hua raised his head again, looking outside the West Sea Dragon Palace and said with a smile, He came just in time, looks like he should also make a trip to the Dragon Island. Ao Su was slightly taken aback, somewhat puzzled, and wanted to release his spiritual sense. At this time, outside the West Sea Dragon Palace, a kind of raging dragon's might came from the sea, instantly enveloping the entire main hall, and even the entire Dragon Palace. A kind of indescribable complex feeling emerged from the bottom of Ao Su and the other dragons' hearts, whether it was fear, respect, or worship. Ao Su's heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly flew up from the jade pillar, exclaiming in surprise, Could it be? Boom boom boom. The originally quiet jade-like seawater suddenly emitted a rumbling sound. Layer after layer of dragon tattoos mysteriously appeared in every inch of the seawater. None of the dragon tribe members could remain still. Some of them could not endure the heavy pressure of the dragon's might and crawled on the ground. Some of them trembled and forcefully supported themselves. Even Ao Su curled up his dragon tail, not daring to reveal his dragon body under the dragon's might. His surprise was mixed with bitterness. He understood that this was a kind of natural suppression that a high-grade dragon instinctively had over a low-grade dragon, and it was not something that could be resisted by any strength. He fellow Taoist Yun. Xiao Hua patted the crimson dragon crown on top of his head. In an instant, its brilliance spread across the entire West Sea Dragon Palace, slightly reducing the invincible dragon's might. After that, he flew out of the main hall, laughed and said, "You should restrain your dragon's might a little. Otherwise, before you can swim to the West Sea Dragon Palace, your dragon descendants will all turn into sieves." Upon hearing Xiao Hua's voice, a dignified voice echoed out from the sea, "Even if I restrain my dragon's might, they will still not be able to stand in front of me." Along with the voice, the dragon's might retracted like a tidal wave. In the distance, a golden light flickered, and a few flaky shadows emerged from the water. When they landed in front of Xiao Hua, they rushed to a spot and transformed into a fist-sized ball of light. Swoosh! Right after the ball of light was formed, it exploded noiselessly, revealing a huge dragon like an ink brush. Wasn't he Reverend Yun? Reverend Yun was right. Although he had retracted his dragon's might, the unparalleled upper-grade pressure still came from the hearts of Ao Su and the other dragons. Their bodies were still trembling and they could not remain calm. Nevertheless, Ao Su dared not to be negligent. He forced himself to endure the pressure, then raised his dragon head respectfully and cried out, "Junior Ao Su, the second elder of the Dragon Palace, offers greetings, Reverend Yun." Reverend Yun raised his dragon head and coiled his dragon body. Immediately, a golden light flickered again, and Reverend Yun transformed into his human form. The innate upper-grade pressure immediately vanished. Then he raised his hand and said, "You may rise." "Thank you, Reverend." Ao Su felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his mind. He hastily transformed into his human form and answered with a flattering smile. Then the group of dragons hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Reverend Yun looked at them from time to time and nodded. "Fellow Taoist Yun, please take a seat." Xiao Hua said smilingly, "In this dragon palace I can never be compared with you. Fellow Taoist, you are too polite." Reverend Yun nodded slightly and sat down on the seat of honor. Xiao Hua, Ao Su and the others sat beside him. "Fellow Taoist Yun, you're quite fast." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I thought you wouldn't be able to make it to the Dragon Island." Reverend Yun looked around and asked, "Didn't Ao Shi forbid our fortune gate from meddling with the West Ocean Dragon Palace? Why did fellow Taoist touch his reverse scale?" Fellow Taoist, you may not know, but this is what happened." Xiao Hua told Reverend Yun the whole story in front of Ao Su, and finally said, "I was worried that something might happen to the West Ocean Dragon Palace again, so I sent Jiang Hong to guard the palace." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.